This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing. 2.3 miles, 11 turns here at the Okayama International Circuit in Japan, and we are just about ready to go racing for a new season here in the ClubSport series presented by DGFX. This is the 2.4 hours of Okayama. Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to RaceSpotTV. I am Connery Maddock, and of course Nolan Rempel will be joining me for the commentary here this evening. The race will consist of 55 vehicles here today, ranging across 3 different classes, just like last season. In the sport category, we have the famous, of course, Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car as featured in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. We have the TCR cars, the brand new Audi RS3 LMS, and of course, that MX-5 Club category. The humble MX-5, which has been a staple in iRacing for so many years for rookies and pros alike. It's a new season and a new challenge for all involved here in this one. Of course, we have the schedule up on screen for you now. This, the 2.4 hours of Okayama, and then we alternate 4 hours of Brands Hatch. Then it's 2.4 hours of Mosport. Then we head to Barcelona, then Phillip Island, and we finish things off on April 4th at the Brazilian racetrack of Interlagos for 4 hours of racing. But right now, well, we have our qualifying session here for Okayama starting to draw itself to a close. And Nolan, absolutely fantastic sort of prospects that we have here for a new season, a new start for all those teams involved.
Very much so indeed, and this is going to be one heck of a season, just like the last one back in January that ran through to May. The big difference is of course, that completely new schedule, no returning tracks from season number 2 for the ClubSport series this year, and that's sure to provide a whole new challenge for teams, as well as with the TCR replacing the Radical SR8 for this season. It's going to be a serious challenge for, some of the newer drivers, especially with those colder tires on the Audi.
Yeah, the Audi is going to have a little bit of an interesting first stint, shall we say, and we'll see how those guys get on with things. Right now on track, you have the end of the club category qualifying, so the other 2 classes, the Porsches and the Audis, they have already gotten their qualifying over and done with. It's just these MX-5s to get themselves sorted for the starting grid in just a couple of moments' time. 2 minutes to be exact before we tick over to that race session. And right now it's going to be Artifact Racing pole position for that Porsche class. Meanwhile, VEC Sim Racing will take pole position for the Audi. So that is how it stands in that one. But the MX-5s still undecided.
Still undecided? That's not going to be undecided for very long, though. Counting down to about a minute and a half left in qualifying. Currently, Alex Crawford for the huge-ass Mazda team is currently sitting on pole position. Provisional pole for now. They are in the pits, though. We still do have, a few cars that are still out there on flying laps.
Yeah, of course, we have the likes of that CXR car that is currently still out there, riding on board with them. This is the 299. They currently sit in 5th place position in terms of the qualifying here in this particular class, and Well, they need to gain on the order of around about half a second or so, well, more than that, to try and improve their position on the grid here. So a lot of work for Andre Brunet to do right now behind the wheel of that 299, but well, it's going to be one lap that he has to do it in. He won't be able to get in any more after this one. So let's see where that CXR car how that CXR holds up. I will get my words out in the right order eventually, and we've also got Cal Racing still out there, Try Racing as well, looking to improve positions. So last-ditch effort for the MX-5s.
One more attempt to go as we continue to ride on board with Andre Brunet for that CXR Project Black number 299 machine as he dives down through to turn 5 for the hairpin corner, then gonna come up over the hill to Revolver down for the very tricky downhill left-hander into the Piper corner, which usually marks turn 3 of the Piper circuit.
Yes, it does. And now for that CXR car, down in towards the left hairpin. Renee hugging towards that inside quite comfortably. It's been a pretty clean lap for Brunet here on this one, so looks like he might be able to drag a decent lap time out of that Miata. But coming through those final 2 corners right now, braking zone for the last corner, just a bit of a dab on the brakes here in these MX-5s. You don't have to slam on the anchors too hard, and then you get yourself the track exit across the line. You will decide to go. Does not improve position in this situation. Meanwhile, you do not have any other runners out there on circuit at the moment. So that will be the end of the MX-5 qualifying. No late changes, shall we say, there. And we also had those two cars of Mivano. That's well, their name says the 289 and the 298, but well, their in-sim numbers are a little different. The 54 and the 381, they will not have a lap set on the board, so they will have to start right at the back of the grid for the MX-5 class. But as this session now ticks down, we should be set for a fantastic race here.
Well, we would expect nothing less. You know, every single of the 5 races that we saw in the last season was just non-stop thrills from start to finish, along through Daytona, Laguna Seca, Silverstone, Zolder, and Road Atlanta. We're starting it off at Okayama, a bit more of a technical track, arguably, than Daytona, but still, with the 3 different fields we've got here today, certainly would not expect anything less than some seriously good racing.
Especially when the TCR cars are involved. I, of course, commentate with Paul Smith on the Friday primetime broadcast, which has been the Michelin IMSA Pilot Challenge, and the vast majority of those races have been absolutely bonkers. So, you know, the fact that we have TCR cars in this field is going to be basically a guarantee that the race will be absolutely insane. But just a couple of seconds now and we can get ourselves the grid formation started here for the first round of this season of the ClubSport series with DGFX. But this is your starting grid for the first race. Artifact Racing will start pole position in your sport category here today. The Porsche 911 Cup cars. We've also got Gold Racing Team Red on that front row as well. DGFX 49 Motorsports, they will start in 3rd with German Sim Racing in 4th. Cycling things down, you got Team Helmedia and huge ass Porsche P5, P6 with P7 going to Meraki Racing with Project GT1.de in that 8th place position. Gold Racing Team White, Fisher Motorsports, Racecraft Esports, and Northside Racing bring things down to P12 in that particular class. Slow Racing and RevMatch Esports bringing things further down, and H2 Performance, NAB Racing, SRT Esports Green, Slow Racing, the number 75, and DGFX 49 Motorsports, number 47, will be the last place car in that Porsche field. And then, of course, you have a little bit of a look at your TCR class here for this evening's race. VEC Sim Racing will take pole position in that one with CXR Project Black on that front row with them. German Sim Racing Orange and Sim RC ClubSport will bring things down to P4. P5 will go to Fach Autotech Sim Racing there, with P6 going to German Sim Racing Scion. Full Send Racing P7 with Element Sim Racing in P8. Team Vikings will start 9th here with Huge Ass Audi in P10. CXR Project Black, the 199, will start 11th with VEC Sim Racing, then their sister car in P12. Evolve will start P13 with Graphite in 14th. Gold Racing Team P15 Full Send in 16th. Real Pixel Team Brit and another Real Pixel car with Graphite Racing rounding out the 20 cars in that TCR class. Here's the short look at your relatively small Mazda field then. Huge Ass Mazda taking pole position, will the Sim Racing team, and CZB Racing there in P3. Rogers, A51 Mazda, CXR Project Black, Kaleroff Racing, Tri Racing, and 2 Vivano cars right at the back of the field. So that is your entire 55 car field here today, and it looks like the racing has already gotten itself started here in the ClubSport series presented by DGFX. The first round of Okayama is underway, side by side for the race leading towards turn 1. Artifact Racing able to edge themselves ahead in this situation, with Gold Racing Team having to try to defend P2 from DGFX 49, but DGFX will just have to hold off the charge just for now. Here comes your TCR class then. VEC Sim Racing will get the race start from pole position in that one. They are pretty clear coming down in towards turn 1, side by side for P2 though. CXR might just lose P2 off the start here as German Sim Racing look to work their way through on them. There's a pit lane starter there as well. Graphite Racing just making it briefly 3 wide with some of your podium runners right now as these this battling for P2 still rages on down in towards the hairpin for the first time in this race. German Sim Racing will be able to squeak their way by. Meanwhile, back in the Mazda field, Huge Ass Mazda, they've been able to get away quite comfortably, but again, it's another battle for P2 in all 3 of your classes here. Will the Sim Racing team able to stay ahead of Zigbee Racing in that one, in that 222 car? So a little bit of frantic racing at the front of each respective class here, Nolan, but everyone seems to have gotten away a little clearly.
Well, everybody except Paul Van Loon from Full Send Racing, who just had a big slide coming into the hairpin, got his both left sides of the grass and came right across and nearly wiped out Marcel Unger for Real Pixel Motorsport. That was in your TCR category, and that was in the run. He's currently 37th overall right now. He was sitting, I can't tell exactly where he was sitting in class, but that was further down the field. But it's definitely a good start, though, throughout your entire field so far throughout this one.
Yeah, no big accidents, shall we say, down in towards turn 1 for the first time in this entire season, let alone the entire race. So we'll have a good look at that TCR field as it works its way through. Of course, there's still a lot of battling going on. 2 wide, 3 wide. There's a Graphite Racing car involved in that particular battle, as we'll get ourselves returning to the live pictures. Those 2 Graphite Racing cars now line astern. This is for positions inside your mid-pack here in this TCR field. So things, oh, there's a car spun around there. That's one of the Porsches. Can't quite see who that one is, but it seems like they're in a huge amount of trouble. Was it helped by another car? It will be. That was the number 16, I believe, if I'm reading that correctly, that got into the back of them. We'll just have to confirm.
That was Danielle Tosmick. It looks. Sorry, that was Hampus Baz that turned that car around, and that is not the start that they wanted to see for their day. So no doubt a little bit frustrating as we take another look at this one from the air. There you have it, just a little bump on the left rear sent that car around and went nose first into the wall just at the hairpin, and unfortunate start to their day though here at Connery.
Yeah, and that slow racing team, the number 76, was the one that got tangled and spun around. Meanwhile, side-by-side racing in the Porsche field. This is the number 61 involved in this one with the 45. So that's Team Helmedia with the slow racing esports team car. The number 75 not really able to do anything about this one right now as they head through that long right hand as you start to climb the hill then onto the back straight. These guys, though, they have lost a lot of time compared to your front-running 10 cars. So there's this big old split down the middle of your Porsches right now, which has happened very early on. We're only on the start of the 3rd lap.
That is true, and I think, you know, we of course do have two different championships that are running. We have your pro championship, and then you have your amateur championship, your AM championship. I think that might, you know, kind of be the difference between the pro and the AM titles right there is, you know, that little split right down the middle of your Porsche field as we ride on board with the CXR Project Black car down in your TCR field in 3rd place right now in their class.
Yep, looking to make some progress here, our CXR. EC Sim Racing, the leader of this class, has pretty much checked out. They've been able to extend the gap to a couple of seconds already over the rest of the field, so they are doing very, very well indeed, trying to, well, make that gap happen and then of course manage it from this point forwards, allowing all of these cars further behind just to have a little bit of a scrap amongst themselves, and that'll lose them more time to the race leader. We do have a car spun around though. That's the Real Pixel Motorsports car, the 112, that has had a couple of problems. Where was this? It was just a single car spin, and I think it was the huge ass car that got a piece of that one as well. Absolutely, well, instant nothing to do with them, but still they get caught up in it. It was Unger around the outside, losing the car a little bit. Of course, those tires aren't quite up to temperature just yet for the TCR cars, so they do seem to be a little bit nervous, and it was basically huge ass that just, you know, absolutely unsighted straight into them.
And there you look at your Porsche field, which is now caught lap traffic. Your battle for 3rd, trying to get around the TCR. They're going to go 3 wide as they try to get around them. This is getting really tight, you know, as the Porsches catch the Miatas and a few of the TCRs as well, and struggling to try to find a way through. All the lap traffic is taking evasive action. You're trying to get out of the way of all of these high-speed Porsches coming through, and good grief. So a few close calls taking place right now as lap traffic becomes a play for the first time today.
Yeah, 15, 16 seconds is the lap time delta between your Porsches and your MX-5. So this has happened relatively quickly here. As you can see, the speed difference, especially on the end of the front straight there, coming down into turn 1, how much faster these Porsches are than those MX-5s. It's a scary closing distance, and requires very heads-up driving to try and work your way around. We're riding on board with Northside Racing. Alan Graf behind the wheel of this one. He tries to work his way through. You can see there's TCR cars also involved in this one as well. So any TCRs that have fallen foul at early instance have been put back into this MX-5 pack, and are just causing a couple more problems for those Porsches as they try to head their way through.
Well, it's going to be a factor of, you know, this type of race they're going to have to look through very, very quickly. Certainly not the first time we're going to be seeing these guys getting close to their slower Mazda racers as continue to try to throttle their way around this beautiful circuit in Japan. It won't be long before, you know, they start to catch the main field of the TCRs as well, and that'll be a whole different challenge in of itself.
Yes, it will be. Of course, the speed difference a lot closer between those two classes. You can see RevMatch Esports there sensing for a little bit of an opportunity down the inside of the number 11 car, the H2 Performance machine. Oh, H2, they've gone for a little bit of a spin off the corner. A bit of an unforced error there on the part of that number 11, and well, just trying to get the power down off the corner. Back end stepped out, didn't want to come back at all, and that was almost a scary instant for that car behind as well, because RevMatch almost ran directly into the back of them, but they got away with it by the skin of their teeth.
And that almost meant, you know, 2 free spots for Northside Racing as well. But, you know, it's so easy to do with the Porsches. You know, you just get on the power a little too eagerly. There's a bit of damage to the back end of that car. Going wheel to wheel, though, down in your TCR category between Element Racing and one other driver back there as well. So things are definitely getting to heat up, though, as we've got your TCRs once again going wheel to wheel as we've seen the Michelin Pilot Challenge.
Yeah, of course, Full Send Racing trying to get themselves up into 9th place position at this moment in time, still battling side by side with Team Vikings on the inside there for the penultimate corner. Vikings trying to keep themselves into contention, but Full Send, well, they did it around the outside coming through that second to last corner. Vikings might have another opportunity at it, though, coming into turn 1 this time around. They do angle themselves down the inside, so Uneberg tries to get the position complete, goes very deep, almost runs into the back of the Element Sim Racing car, but he's able to get that car stopped, and still side by side, then coming down the S's, but he's trapped on the outside line, can't quite find the grip up there, so Volsend is able to come back at him, and they're able to get the pass back as well. Brilliant battle here in the mid-pack of the TCR class. You can see Vikings also similarly angling down the inside of the hairpin, and it's frantic a little bit further back as well, as Alpine Stars and E-Team Brit also had a little bit of a fracas into there. So this absolute train of cars are really showing how good the TCR car is for racing.
It really is. Any race that has the TRs in it that I've seen, at least, has been an absolute thrill to watch. Even races that I've participated in has been an absolute thrill to watch. And this is exactly why, you know, they can just race so well and they can race so confidently. The battle now for your lead overall has just caught the TCRs, though, as they start to make their way through. Tai Kim for Artifact Racing going to go to the inside now of Revolver. He's going to try to work his way through. A little bit of a twitch from Sven Demo behind them in the huge-ass Porsche car. And as they continue to try to work their way through the traffic, this is definitely going to get very interesting here. Oh, maybe I might have had a little bit of contact behind them as well.
Yeah, very close run of things indeed, as those Porsches try to work through them. TCRs, the huge-ass Audi, though, has had a couple of problems. They are stranded on the entry there to the penultimate corner. What has happened here? Oh, it was a big instant there between themselves and the Real Pixel Motorsports car. Well, Hudas, they had a bit of a line there on the outside of the corner, and you have to argue that Real Pixel just drifted across their nose and sent themselves into a bit of a concrete barrier.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky kind of scenario when, you know, you have two cars that are just trying to argue for the same piece of real estate on the track. And he was on the outside. He was up against the grass. Nothing really he could have done about that. So it is, you know, unfortunate. It's just one of those classic early race incidents that we so commonly see in multi-class racing. It's just a shame that it had to happen, you know, so early on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate that those things happen, but you know, if there's going to be a time for it to happen, it's going to be at this point in the race where everyone is still so close quarters. Speaking of, you have a pass being complete there back in the TCR field. Fantastic battle indeed as they get themselves sorted out for the next left-hander. The VEC Sim Racing just ahead of that one in P18 in the class. It is, of course, a very big TCR field here today. 25 cars to be exact will make it the biggest field that we have here today. Meanwhile, Calif Racing and CXR Project Black, they're deciding to have a little bit of a scrap for P7 and P8 in your MX-5. CXR riding the back bumper of the 263 into the hairpin they go. Look for the inside line, forces the other car to go very wide, and well, it looks like CXR in the process, they've had themselves a bit of a moment. Did they clip the curb, clip the grass on the inside? Can't quite see from that angle, but the result is the same. Lost control of the car, have to get back going.
I think they might have actually clipped the car, the back, the right rear on board. Yeah, there you have a little bit of contact with the Kalayoth racing car, and sent them into a spin. They did lock the brakes down to make sure the car wouldn't go into the wall, and didn't make it worse than it was, so that is the good news for them. Not much damage, they'll be able to get going all right. Your battle for the lead, though, you remember that big train of Audis that we were talking about earlier? Well, your battle for the lead is going to catch up to them rather quickly here, and I don't know whether I should be concerned or sitting on my toes in anticipation.
Maybe a little bit of both in that situation. It's always fun. Well, maybe for us and the spectators when things like this happen. Maybe not so much for the drivers. It really puts them on edge as the Porsches try to work on that huge train of Audi TCR cars, and Artifact able to almost put one car in between themselves and their closest challenger of that huge-ass Porsche. Inside line for the penultimate corner. This is such a sketchy portion of the racetrack. Can't really go too wide coming through here, at least in any fast manner. But Artifact Racing seeming to do a good job with the traffic for now, but they will go side by side ahead of him. That's Geodesic trying to get past Full Send Racing, and well, Geodesic down the inside now, not able to clear their competitors by the time the exit of the corner arrives, so Full Send can get themselves back on the inside then for the left, and of course you have that Porsche leader. He'll make it 3 wide, just squeaking himself through, so the TCRs can still have their battling. He gets both of them done in the same piece of real estate, and has really gained a lot of time over Huge Ass thanks to that risky move. So it was a calculated risk, but it's a risk that paid off.
What also helped is, that huge ass Porsche right behind them, they actually got caught up as well by their own incident. That was actually, there was a second TCR battle right behind them, and they also held up the huge ass car. So that's what also helped, Artifact Racing to pull ahead just that little bit more as well.
Yeah, Huge Ass deep into the left, though. You can see a little bit of smoke coming from the tires, so bit of a lockup into there, so easy to do in these Porsches, as he's going to lose a little bit of time as a result, but that's how desperate he is to try and stay close, try and stay within touching distance of that leading Artifact Racing car, as again, more MX-5 traffic that they're having to deal with, gets dealt with in quite comfortable fashion though, but in this situation it is seemingly quite frantic, and there'll come a point in the race as well where those Porsches will be having to deal with both the TCR field and the MX-5 field at the same time, which would just be even more crazy, and dare I say, might result in a couple of inadvertent bumper bangings and spinnings out, shall we say.
That's usually how things work. You get your classic early race spins. Then things tend to kind of settle down for a bit while the classes battle amongst themselves. Then they all catch each other. Then it just all goes downhill from there. Sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively, and sometimes a little bit of both. But oh, look at this! Oh wow! So the huge ass car tried to look around the outside for the lead, and unfortunately got a little slowed down by Calix Poon in that Cali Auto Racing car. He does have that draft though of Ty Kim, so your fight for the lead still very much alive.
Yeah, very much so, as they'll work their way through track, well, seemingly congested no matter where you look at this stage. It is a relatively short track in the grand scheme of things, but so things can seem quite claustrophobic, but right now seemingly well dealt with for all of your teams. The battle for the race lead is still close. That is what you're seeing up on screen for you right now. Artifact Racing still ahead of the Huge Ass Porsche car, but it seems like that Huge Ass machine really has the pace advantage at this stage. It just seems that they haven't really been able to find an opportunity to try and get themselves through. The traffic hasn't been working with them all that well, and Artifact is able to get through just that little bit cleaner to keep themselves ahead. They'll have to do it again through this next phase of traffic, which is seemingly never ending at this point. They have to go to the inside on all of this traffic. There's the Fach Auto Tech sim racing car that they're having to work their way by on. We're riding on board with Sven Demel, and this will be a great view of what these drivers have to deal with. Well, it was an attempted outside move there for Huge Ass, maybe an inadvertent one, considering the line from Artifact Racing. They'll have to go either way around the lap traffic, and it's just a matter of how many of these cars can they get done before the next braking zone.
And it will be Artifact Racing to go on the defensive. Once again, Huge Ass trying to make that move around the outside. How these Audis, though, along with one Porsche, really close, and Huge Ass has to jam on the brakes to avoid turning Artifact into a concrete barrier. That was just inches away from being a disaster.
Yeah, well, motorsport is a game of margins, and, well, quite exemplified by the close run there in through the corner, as Artifact again trying to scythe his way through the field here. There have been a couple of close moments. There's a bit of oversteer off the corner though for Artifact, but Huge Ass not able to capitalize, as actually that's that Artifact Racing car diving down on towards the pit lane, and I can't see what reason that would be for. They haven't gotten themselves a penalty at all. Is this a deliberate early stop here for Artifact to make the strategy numbers work out?
Well, it would be a very early stop because, the fuel window for these cars is set to about 45 to 55 minutes, we're not even 25 minutes into this race. So even if that is an early stop, that is extremely early to be coming in. Like, I'm struggling to find a reason myself, but the only thing I can think of is it must be deliberate.
Well, they were stopped in their box for around about 11 seconds, so 11 seconds of fuel taken. I didn't see that car go up and down on the jack, so no tires, of course, but still a very early stop and a very short stop at that for Artifact Racing. They are not the only car that has come down on towards the lane, though. SRT Esports Green were in around about a lap and a half earlier. That was for a longer stop, though, around about 50 seconds. But now Artifact Racing, they have to deal with all the traffic once again. Traffic they've already dealt with once. They have to slide their way through again. So as a result of that one, huge-ass Porsche have been able to get themselves to the front of the field. Meanwhile, you have the battle for P1 in your TCR class as well. VEC Sim Racing still leading that one. German Sim Racing Orange in second place, about 6.5 tenths of a second behind. They are the TCR car that's just the second in line there behind that Porsche, as we can see the rear view from the perspective of the VEC Sim Racing car. But the Porsche will make its way by, and now German Sim Racing can focus on trying to catch up to the back of that VEC Sim Racing car. As I don't really see the, coming back to that stop, Nolan, I don't really see the logic in that stop unless it was an actual penalty. I didn't see it immediately come up on my screen, but if it was a stop and go penalty for them, that is absolutely tragic for the first part of the race where you're leading.
Yeah, so that is certainly not the way you want to start off your season, but the good news, they do have a very long time yet to make it up. Still got 2 hours and 4 minutes, 13 seconds and counting down in this race. You'll still have more than enough time to try to work your way back through the front and get your momentum back and, pick up those extra spots as the VC Sim Racing machine continues to try to hang on in front as we have more Porsches coming up behind them.
Yep, more Porsches trying to work their way through at this stage. It seems like that is their entire existence in this race. Just constant lap traffic, constantly having to be on your guard, trying to make further progress forward in and amongst the slower cars. But most of them, and I say most of them, seem to be doing very well at it. Of course, we get a good view of that VEC Sim Racing car, currently your TCR race leader, with Chris Dubeku, or Dubeku, whatever, however you pronounce that last name. He's still leading this race as part of his team, and right now, he's feeling a little bit of pressure from the German Sim Racing team, but nothing really to be concerned about at this stage. Just keeping him at bay, keeping him out of range in terms of, in terms of an overtake, which is probably a pretty comfortable position to be in as a driver.
Certainly the position he wants to be in as a driver, to say the very least. So as that battle continues to try to shape itself up, it is actually difficult, though, for Michael Zanke to try to close that gap in, because every time it gets close, you have the Porsches that come up behind them, and it just becomes so much more, challenging for him to try to work his way up. He almost has to try to, weave back and forth, try to get the draft from the Porsches as they go through, which we've seen that, be effective in some other series in the past. It's a little curious as to why wouldn't he try that again. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, of course, we had news that what we thought was an early stop for Artifact Racing was, in fact, a penalty for a jump start. So that is a big one there, as they had to come down into the lane and serve that one. But the thing is, they were 10 seconds stopped in their box, so they must have taken some form of service as well. But, we'll just get that one answered relatively soon enough. But still, a huge moment to have happen to your race leader, having to serve that penalty and really puts a damper on their race here. As now you know, they have to race from behind. It's a recovery drive that they have to get going here. Meanwhile, that battle for the race lead in the TCRs is starting to heat up now, because no longer does VEC Sim Racing have that comfortable gap where they're out of range for an overtake. German Sim Racing have been able to close that gap, but like you said, Nolan, every time German Sim Racing have been in this situation, there's been a Porsche there or an MX-5 there to ruin it.
Well, he might get a good shot if he can get you know, a decent drive here off to the Atwood curve. He could be able to get that draft down towards the hairpin, and he did get a good drive off indeed, but not close to that gap enough. Unless he makes a seriously big lunge up the inside, I don't think he's going to be quite close enough. And no, he is going to back off. But you know, all that lap. Oh, he is going to try to go for a lunge up the inside, and you saw Aaron D. Taylor for CXR, Project Black behind them. He tried to look around the outside to go for second, because this 2-car fight for the lead in your TCR class has just turned into a 4-car fight.
Yeah, it has all 4 cars in a big old line. You can see the body language of that leading car, the little wiggle there into the left-hander for VEC Sim Racing. Well, something to be said about moving towards a braking zone, but I think that he was just having a little bit of fun there, as right now, coming through that penultimate corner, German Sim Racing will have possibly, depending on the run out of the final turn, a big opportunity into turn 1. They're able to get a decent one, but not absolutely stellar, so it will be a dive bomb from this far back, but there's a Porsche looking to get itself involved as well. NAB Racing on the inside might just give an opening here to German Sim Racing, and they do decide to nip their way through the gap. It has to be completed around the outside of the 3rd corner, though, as Zanke, out into the dirt, out into the gravel there, back onto the circuit, and still in a side-by-side battle down towards the hairpin at the bottom of the hill. Absolutely equal on the brakes between these 2 cars, but German Sim Racing to the race lead in TCRs, and VEC Sim Racing might lose 1 more position here, as they have to fight tooth and nail with CXR.
So CXR looking to get up into 2nd place in the TCR class, still side by side. Much later on the brace goes VEC Sim Racing. Doesn't overcook that corner though, so they will have the optimal line down into the 2nd corner. They make contact and spin it around in front of the Porsche. Will they save it? They do hang on to that one. Beautiful driving from everybody to make sure that those cars did not face the wrong way on the circuit.
Yeah, no one spun around. They all keep themselves going. And well, in these front-wheel drive cars, you basically have to floor the throttle when you get it sideways to bring that rear end back around, or rather to push that front end forwards, as there was also a Porsche involved in that one as well. The Slow Racing Esports Team 2 car, and of course the Artifact Racing car that was on that recovery drive, almost got themselves caught up in an instant there. They're able to, well, get away with a bit of contact with the VEC Sim Racing car, but nothing major, and very well done to hold on to their car, because they don't have the luxury of it being front-wheel drive and able to just floor it when that happens.
Well, if he did floor, he would have sent the car completely around in the 360 and done a little donut, as we saw happen earlier on today, even in the same race. So it's a very good drive from that Porsche to make sure that, you know, they didn't get too caught up in that as well. But so now, as the Artifact Motorsport driver continues to try to run down now the SlowRacing.com esports team, that will be for 15th place in class. We're going to look, though, back to P number 10 at Full Send Racing in the TCR class.
It seems like the TCR class is where it's all at, but we basically predicted that one at the start of the show, shall we say, as these cars, this class, absolutely bonkers indeed. Evolve Racing Team Red involved in the battle there with the 2 cars behind them, Full Send Racing and Team Vikings, as they work their way through down towards the end of the back straight into turn 5 they go. A bit of a missed apex for that leading car of Evolve Racing Team Red, but they got to get away with it. Not all that much lost time as a result here, so they're able to keep themselves ahead for now. Heading their way through Piper Corner, turn 7. That's it's Evolve Racing Team Red. They have to duck out of line. Have they got a slowdown penalty that they've had to serve out there? No, they make contact with Team Vikings coming through
turn 8 there, and that is so unfortunate. I was so optimistic of the part of Evolve Racing Team Red. It's a move they perhaps shouldn't really have gone for, if you ask me. Of course, they wanted to mitigate the time lost from stepping out of the line, but, you know, don't do it at the risk of other cars.
Yeah, that was a lunge up the inside that just did not quite work out the way they were hoping for. Ended up making contact and busting up the front end of their Audi TCR, so a little bit of front end damage. Nothing severe though, so that is the good news. So shouldn't be too long. Nothing a good little sledgehammer along the inside of the fender wouldn't be able to fix. So of course that might bust the radiator on those cars as well. We get back to your Miata lead real briefly here. You have your huge ass cars and your fight for the lead. With, well, not quite a fight for the lead, 7.7 seconds separated them, and you can see all the deltas along the bottom. Gained 1.6 seconds one lap, lost that second the next lap, and then gained 9/10, but overall seems to kind of be closing the gap.
Yeah, you know, working in bit by bit. Of course, the Movano cars did have to start at the back of the grids, didn't take a lap time in qualifying, so, well, that was because of an incorrect registration. I think they didn't have the right car number, which I pointed out jokingly at the start of the broadcast, but it seems like they've been punished for doing so here in this one, so they had to start from the rear, but they've made very good progress as that 54 car up into P number 2 already, and as you say, starting to close down in on your leader as well, so you can see the difference between those two Movano cars as well as they work their way through as a pair. And, well, having to get out of the way of the Porsches at this current moment in time, but the overall progress from Movano in that class has been forward.
Well, the Movano racing cars, despite, you know, the little bit of an unfortunate incidents of having to start from the back of the grid, they are up to second place in class and try to run down the huge ass car in the lead. So that is definitely, you know, a plus for that team. You know, they've had a very good and strong drive since the start of this race. Question is, though, these are, of course, two teammates that are nose to tail right now. Will they try to race each other is going to be the big question, or do you think they might try to see which one of them is faster, and that should be the one to try to run down the class leader?
Well, you know, if you, right now, you have to very quickly figure out which one is faster and maybe get that swap negotiated very quickly, and you can't really afford as a team to be fighting that hard side by side. It's just going to lose you time to the race leader. So if I was a team boss, I'd just say, guys, just, you know, keep it calm. If one of you is faster, just let them go. As right now, again, as I said, they're having to deal with pauses right now, so you can't really get a good representation, a good view of what the pace is like between these two drivers. So we'll just have to wait a couple of moments time. That TCR went straight into the grass there, trying to get themselves around the Miata. Again, big outside line being taken, but that TCR will be off and away in just a couple of moments time. As right now, the battles for the race leads have dwindled out a little bit. CXR Project Black is currently more concerned about the SimRC ClubSport car, as they're having a bit of a duel out there on circuit. CXR maintaining a position in P2 for now, but that was a big look there from SimRC to go forward.
So a big look for them to try to work their way forward, and still plenty of time to do it. Again, if they can get a good drive off of Atwood, they could make the overtake into Hairpin, which is arguably the best passing zone on the track, completely nose to tail. CXR goes defensive. SimRC gonna have to look around the outside to try to get that move done. We have seen the TCR can be very good on the outside of corners, and it will be Lucas Dulcer later on the brakes, but oh, a little bit of contact. Archbargy getting a little bit here. CXR tries to muscle their way back in front, but overall they're going to lose the spot, trying to go over and under now as they go for the undercut now. Oh, nearly making contact as well down to the corners, and it looks like Taylor might just be able to hang on to that spot.
This is why I love touring car racing. CXR door-to-door in towards the next turn. That's turn 8, and into turn 9 they'll be able to find themselves ahead. Slight missed Apex will lose a bit of time, but has the track position now over SimRC as
Lucas Dolzer behind the wheel of that Sim RC car really be kicking himself. He almost had that pass complete, but has to stay behind, has to live to fight another day. He certainly has the pace to keep with and maybe even get past CXR here. Just simply hasn't been able to do so. The defense from CXR has been absolutely great, as again a bit of a tentative moment for CXR in towards turn 1. Sim RC has been able to gain a lot of time here, and Dolzer now really starting to find his footing with that Audi in this race. Of course, around about, well, over halfway through the stint at this moment in time, and a lot of cars wanting to really have a good one of this first stint. And well, Sim RC not able to make much progress down into the outward curve of turn 4. And again, this isn't going to be the greatest positionings for turn 5 either, even though it is forcing CXR to go slightly defensive coming down the back straight. But this Mazda's going to be involved now. There's a mistake though from CXR into turn 5, and Sim RC will have another opportunity through the same section of racetrack as last time, but not looking as promising as last time.
Not looking as promising indeed. So this battle is still very much alive for third or second place in your TCR category. Diving up the inside around that Miata, trying to make work. You have, of course, the German sim racing car trying to maybe get involved in this battle as well. And usually when you add more cars to the mix, it becomes all that more explosive, shall we say, as these cars come down through the last corner to close down on the World of Sim Racing team Miata. Will Taylor be able to use him as a pick? The answer will be no, because in their main route for the spot, and Lucas Dolzer goes through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sim RC just have to stay in line for now, stay in the tow, and try and get that pass complete somewhere else. But they've been gifted, one big opportunity, one slight opportunity. Neither has worked out for them so far. And the longer these guys keep at it, the more happy that German Sim Racing Orange will be at the front of that TCR field, as they currently have about a 4.5 second gap all the way back to P2 and P3 right now. So they're hoping this battle continues on even further. Meanwhile, neither of these two cars want that to happen, as they want to get focused and try to catch the leader, but they're just having to deal with each other for now. And again, it was a big look for Sim RC into turn 5 once again on this lap, third time in a row. And again, CXR really staying ahead and keeping position. Here comes the Porsche trying to work its way through. That's Project GT looking to get themselves the positioning over these TCR cars, looking to work their way through, and they will do so. They scare CXR slightly into turn 9, but again, they're able to get their way through, and the status quo is maintained between these two.
This battle is really something else. They're trying to make looks every single lap, trying to, kind of get to whatever spot they can to, work their way through and hopefully pick that spot up. Lucas Dolzer, he might be getting a little bit more impatient here. He's making more and more aggressive looks down into the hairpin and other, respective corners as well. So he might think, I'm a whole lot faster than him. He's trying to find a way through. But when he does, we saw it once, he made his way through, but Taylor immediately went for the over-under and got that spot back, and he's held on to it ever since.
Yeah, it was a perfect piece of driving, perfect piece of racecraft coming through that turn 5, 6, 7 section. It's really solidified him in the front of this particular battle, but still, the Sim RC still lying in wait, still looking to try to strike any moment that CXR car makes a mistake. And well, CXR, they haven't been entirely comfortable getting the car slowed down for turn 5. They're taking the corner very, very wide, not making a neat apex on the inside, and every single time I'm scared they're going to be outbraking themselves and just give another opportunity to Sim RC.
Yeah, that is definitely a case as well, and it looks like we might have had an incident somewhere else for a battle for position down in your Mazda field. We have one car that went flying off at the outward corner. It was Calix Poon that has gone off at the corner, got bumped out of the way, and that was keep on 4th position by Andre Brunet. That was down at turn number 3. That was a fight further down your order for about 7th or 8th place in their class. Replay now up on your screen, and there you see Poon off and into the gravel trap.
Yeah, it was the CXR car that just got into the back of them a little bit, into the braking zone. Of course, it wasn't helped by the fact that Kaloff got 2 tires into the dirt a little bit coming through that section, so it was basically the car behind helping them off the racing circuit. I wouldn't say they were going in that direction anyway, but certainly didn't help as they have to slow that car right down to rejoin the track in a safe manner, but they do so, and that's the most important thing here. Meanwhile, of course, you do have that race-leading TCR battle. Well, not race-leading TCR battle, but the battle for P2 and P3 going on right now. And, well, it is still that CXR car ahead, but for how long? The huge-ass Porsche interfering a little bit in this one, but SimRC still not brave enough to be able to sling it down the inside at any one of these corners. Still early stages of the race, so a lot of time to work with here for Dolza. It's just more frustrating than anything seeing that car ahead of you when you know you're slightly faster.
It is frustrating, but you do have to be patient. If you let kind of your emotion or frustration get to you, that is when mistakes are made, and that is when the battles do not end in a successful overtake that is maintained, but that's when they end in 1 or 2 cars spinning off, and maybe a few innocent bystanders get collected up in it as well. I am wondering if he might try to make something work in the pits, because we are closing in to that window now in about a few minutes' time here. Do you think he might try to maybe go for an undercut or an overcut on that second place car, CXR?
The undercut might be a bit tricky considering the cold tires of the TCR cars coming out the pit lane. An overcut would probably be slightly more beneficial in terms of that one. Of course, it depends on, the undercut definitely depends on how many laps that you're given to try and warm up your tires before that next car comes down in. As right now in that Porsche field, P6 and P7 is the battle going on right now. Gold Racing Team versus the Hell Racers. As now 0.3 of a second between the two of them on the way down to turn 4. The Mazda will not quite get himself involved there, but Hellraiser's still really laying into the back of the Gold Team white car. As Gold, they have to go defensive to the inside. Here comes Hellraisers then, completing the move perhaps on the outside. Well, they're not getting close to doing so. Not that much commitment on the outside there. They have to duck back in line, and Gold Racing Team will live to fight another day, and fight they will, because Hell Racers are still almost onto that on the back bumper of the Porsche ahead of them. They get a good run as well coming out in the corner, but they won't be able to angle themselves for a move into turn 8. So they'll follow tightly, they'll follow closely, and then maybe look to pick up the position once those TCRs get involved.
You'd either be in these 2 corners, or he might try to make a look down the front stretch as well, as they approach the battle for 5th place in your TCR class. Right up against the bumper, Hellraisers dive to the inside, and Gold Racing White tries to block him right up to the pit wall. Side by side, they are going to look 3 wide into the braking zone. This could get very ugly here. Hellraisers trying to pull around the outside. They're going to have that line for turn number 2 and get that spot clean and settled.
Yeah, they get it complete. Very good work there for Hampus Bars behind the wheel of that number 16 car, getting the overtake done over Gold Racing Team, and Jeffrey Garzotto coming through that first sector. And, well, they've been able to gap that Gold Racing Team white car already, so maybe they were getting held up a little bit behind that car, but now they are through and able to put down their more clear air lap times. As you can see Gold, they're trying to work their way back in, and, well, right now it still remains to be seen whether they'll be able to catch back up after that huge amount of time gained directly after the pass by Hell Racers. But Hell Racers now running for the hills, as we do get an update for that battle for 2nd in your TCR class.
Lucas Dolzer managed to find a way through around Taylor in the CXR car. Not sure when that happened, but it did happen. It looks like it might have happened, a lap ago in the run down to the hairpin, and in fact that is exactly where it happened. Lucas Dalton managed to get that move done, and he is still ahead, but now it is Taylor that holds the draft. Gonna look to the inside of turn 1, but doesn't quite go for it. It's back in line, might try to make something look off of Atwood.
Yeah, a couple of opportunities to try and get the pass done here at Okayama. You're not limited to just slipstream down the inside at 1. You have big braking zone at turn 4, big braking zone at turn 5. You can sling one as a surprise down the inside of 6 and 8 as well. So lots of chances, lots of opportunities, but where does CXR take their next one? They have to be careful. They do have a Porsche trying to work their way through, but that will get done by the next braking zone at least, so not really interfering all that much. Meanwhile, Gold Racing Team they have a big incident. Gold Racing Team, they have a massive one on the entry towards turn 5, in and amongst the lap traffic, and now Jeffrey has to get that car spun back around and rejoin in a safe fashion, but you can see exactly what Jeffrey was trying to do there, try and get in that gap between the two TCR cars, but a little bit of contact was made with the CXR car that completely and utterly unsettled that Porsche.
Yeah, really turned himself on the nose, across the nose of the CXR TCR, tried to fit in the gap, and Taylor never moved. That was, I hate to say it, that from the aerial shot, it can kind of go both ways when you think about it, but I think you kind of have to put that a little more on Garzado in that scenario, but he went hard into the wall, and good grief, that was just big impact as well.
I completely take back what I said earlier. I don't think Jeffrey was going to go for, the middle between those two CCR cars. He was forced to do so thanks to the contact between himself and CXR, as CXR drifted towards the right a little bit. So that really changes my assessment of the situation, that is for sure. It was more that CCR car coming across slightly than Gold Racing Team actually trying to go for a very marginal gap. So we'll have to see how what the stewards think of that one, because on first look it looked a certain way, and now you take a second look and you can see exactly what had happened, and it looks better on Gold Racing Team as a result.
Yeah, and sometimes it is those very, very little kinks in the track that can cause something like that. You look at it from the top and you think, how in the world can that cause something? Well, a perfect example of it right there as to how something like that can turn out. So it's one of the challenges of a track like this. They can just come up so easily on you, and when you do, you can just be completely blindsided by them, because that little twitch, that's all it needs to completely take a car out of a race.
Yeah, it's clearly those Porsches where they're sketchy at the best of times. Let's just say, as we have a couple of drivers heading their way down onto the pit lane. That seems to be around about on time, since the drivers are limited to about 45 to 55 minutes on the fuel, and we've just crossed the 45-minute mark here. So that's why a lot of teams have now decided to come down in. The most notable of which, DGFX 49, they were running in the top 3 in class before their stop. They've come down on towards the lane to get their service done now, so we'll have to wait to see where they come out in relation to the other cars once that service is complete. We also have CXR Project Black. They've also come down on towards the lane in that TCR class, and of course now in the MX5 class we actually have the 2 Movano cars taking their pit stops at the exact same time. But battling out there on circuit is Hell Media, looking to work their way into the inside of 5, but that move will be covered off by Rev Match Esports. This is the battle for P7 and 8 in the border class.
The battle still heating up. Some new battles picking up just as others finish off, as that is Emil Heyerdahl for the Hella Media car that's trying to work his way around Steve Clays in Rev Match. So this could be an interesting battle in itself right here. You got about 4 tenths separating them now, 3.5 now. So that gap is steadily closing as they approach the CXR Miata. And we'll be trying to make a look. Blaze is still going to stay on the defensive, but Oh, he's really going to throw it at the inside, isn't he, down in the turn one, but ends up back out of that. We have a spinner up ahead of them as well, though. Douglas Rice and the ALD racing machine has gone around, and that was all in his own doing. Looks like they maybe got the wheels caught in a patch of dirt.
Yeah, maybe, just maybe, as these guys through the first sector now, and you can see the bit of a pit party going on at this stage. Another couple of teams, good couple of teams, coming onto the lane, and well, SimRC ClubSport, they've decided to come in, and there is your TCR, or rather your ex-TCR leader right now inside this pit stop phase, coming down onto the lane. And well, we'll have to see if the rest of that TCR field does come in, and it seems like the vast majority of them have. So now out of the lanes, they decide to go a big sort of spread in terms of the stop times here. You have a couple of cars going around about 36 seconds, but certainly a couple more that could, you know, throw a little bit of a spanner into the works in terms of the pit stop strategy here. But right now, German Sim Racing Orange, they've been able to come out ahead as the rest of their competitors also came down on towards the lane, so they weren't at risk of losing positions. SimRC ClubSport still in, and they hold on to second place as the CXR car still relatively close behind them, but they're on the edge of dropping outside that second margin. As again, now we have some Porsches come down in to join in the pit party.
So it looks like the entire field is going to be coming down for their stop. Certainly not going to be the last stop of the day. It's going to have to make at least one more. That is a guarantee. How many drivers are going to be swapping out, though, for their other drivers? This is a team event, remember, so we will be seeing some driver swaps as well taking place. Remember, minimum 45 minutes for seat time for each driver in these teams. So some strategy could be used for that as well.
Maybe, just maybe, as those pit stop service times will come through for the Porsche field. Mostly drivers not taking any tires here, around about 20 to 22 seconds on the stop for those that haven't. Meanwhile, you do have those drivers that have taken a little bit longer, around about the 50-second mark. So split in terms of the strategy here in the Porsches, which is sometimes what we like to see, because then things start to come to a head and see who has worked out the better strategy when it comes to the final portion of the race. But right now, Hell Racers are currently scored as your race leader, but that will be short-lived as they decide to head their way to the pit lane.
So Hell Racers going to come on in. That will allow... Oh, never mind. Fisher Motorsport, who was in second place, they're not going to inherit the lead either because they're also in the pit lane. So it'll go down to third place. Artifact Racing, who are going to inherit the lead as they come off of turn number three, the final corner on the racing circuit. As they are beginning to approach some more lap traffic of themselves, along with traffic exiting the pits. So a little bit of traffic problems for your race leader.
Yeah, you know, and it seems to be a bit of a constant issue as well, as we see Artifact Racing. They had to come down in for that penalty, and they actually took a bit of a top up in terms of the fuel while doing so. And as far as my assessment, it is allowed in the rules to do that. Some leagues will punish you for taking a pit stop service along with your penalty, but Artifact Racing has tried to you know, put that silver lining on the cloud and get themselves a little bit of fuel perhaps to try and make this first stint that little bit longer, as Tae Kim down in towards that very slow speed turn 5, and you can see the under rotation of that front right as well. These Porsches so easy to lock up, and you can see that Kim was very close to doing so down into that heavy braking zone that time around.
And we have had a retirement in this race just now. Car number 75 was just disqualified from the race for exceeding 9 infraction points. So not the way they wanted to start their season at all.
Yep, that's the slowracing.com esports team. And, well, Daniel Tomzik behind the wheel of that one. And, well, he'll have to bring that down towards the line and park it for the rest of the race. And there we go. Well, iRacing decides to get a little bit of a move on in terms of that one, as instead removes him entirely from the server. But well, it looks like that slow racing, you know, it's absolute heartbreak for him. As well, Daniel, he's back. He's going to bring it down towards the lane at some point, presumably. But I'm not sure exactly the point of still running out there. Unless, of course, they still allow the cars to run despite not being scored, which might be the situation.
Yeah, so that is most unfortunate for them to start their season off. We're looking up now to your battle for second in your out infield as he dives up the inside. A big contact, shoves the door in on Lucas Dulzer. I guess that's one way to make an overtake work, as you know, we have the Porsche battle for 11th as well. We're trying to work their way through. Replay up on your screen now. And oh my goodness, that was really something to say the least. And that was actually a fight for the lead in class, not for second place. I guess that's one way to make an overtake work, but I think the stewards might have a word or two to say about that one.
Well, it was about for P2. German Sim Racing still in the lead right now, but yeah, that was basically a welcome to TCR Racing sort of move down the inside there. Bit of a barge on the inside, shoving the other driver out there. Of course, we enjoy it, spectators enjoy it, the stewards might not, and so we'll have to keep an eye on that one to see what comes through, as right now, you know, it has resulted in CXR getting a quite considerable gap now over SimRC, as now they're right on the back of the race leader all of a sudden. So CXR now looking to work their way through. Here comes the Porsche on the outside though, trying to squeak its way through. CXR might still have an opportunity here depending on how deep on the brakes they go, as they go very deep is the answer, very deep indeed, and they're able to make the corner as well, make it competitive, trying to wrestle the race lead away from Andy Kuhn as part of that German Sim Racing car, as they get very close off the corner. German Sim Racing's gone very deep coming through turn 7, but they're still able to complete to keep the position. And now there's a Porsche getting itself involved. SRTE racing down the inside. They make the gap for CXR there. Opportunistic move, but can't make any further progress still. And all of a sudden, SimRC are back in the picture. It's a 3-car fight for the race lead.
Was it a good idea to put the TCR cars in the series? Answer is yes, absolutely it was, because this is some fantastic racing that we're seeing here. Definitely the stuff that the fans and us came to see. German Sim Racing are still with the lead somehow through all of that. How did they hang on to the lead through all of that anyways? We got a Porsche looking up the inside and turns himself. Oh, dearie me.
Yeah, that's the slowracing.com esports team 2 has gotten themselves involved in that one, as well, it was an opportunistic move down the inside again at turn 1, and they overdo it a little bit. Luckily not collecting any of those 3 cars fighting for the race lead in TCRs, but again, it's a needlessly risky thing to do. Wow, German Sim Racing really got away by the skin of their teeth there. That Porsche was so close to hitting their rear end.
I know that it's a good thing that Porsche decided to, lock it down and spin the car around, and your fight for the TCR lead, it is still heating. It's still, really tight together. They're approaching a Miata now. So this will get very interesting to see how they try to work their way through. Lucas Dolter, he is kind of hanging back a little bit here from the lead as Taylor continues to try to find a way through, but oh my word. I don't even have words. Like I don't know what to say at that. Like that was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I've started to become desensitized to these sorts of things when it comes to the TCR cars, because doing Friday prime time, this is what every race is like in TCRs. It's absolutely brilliant. As right now, German Sim Racing Orange, they had that comfortable gap in that first stint of on the order of about 4.5 seconds, but that really has been eaten up over the over the pit stop phase and the first part of this of this second stint. So now they're starting to come under threat, and CXR looking very, very feisty indeed. Similarly so for SimRC. So if I'm German Sim Racing here, you just have to be just a little nervous with the way things have gone over the past 10 minutes or so.
well, if Taylor intends on getting past the German sim race car the way he got through the SimRC ClubSport car, I would definitely be a little nervous as well. They have a Porsche working their way through. That is 17th overall for Gold Racing Team White. But that car's gonna go through all safe and sound. Looks like the battle might calm down here for, maybe half a lap or so.
Yeah, well, attempting to keep TCR cars calm, or TCR drivers calm, is a big issue. An optimistic one, as Andy Kuhn, a little bit of a mistake coming through turn 6 there, allows CXR to really drive up to the back of them, and knowing these TCR cars probably into the back of him at some point as well, as Aaron Taylor, that second car in line, second car in position, altering different lines coming through the start of that final sector through turn 8 and turn 9, but German Sim Racing still able to keep themselves ahead and actually able to get a bit of a gap here coming through those final 2 corners, and that will keep CXR from making a move into 1.
Yeah, so it's going to keep them from making it, and it is slowly beginning to look like these cars they're going to close in again real quickly, and Taylor is definitely hard on the offensive, pushing all out as hard as he can go. It would seem they do have their overall race leader, and we have just received word that Taylor now has to concede his position to Lucas Dolzer for that little shove to the door some laps ago. So that will split your battle up for the lead here a little bit.
Well, depending on how they negotiate, they have to wait for the Porsches to head their way through at least to try and get that, penalty served, and he gets it done right away. So CXR having to surrender the position there to SimRC, and while doing so, they haven't actually lost all that much time, especially considering German Sim Racing had a bit of a slide there coming through turn 5. So this trio is kept together despite the stewards having to get involved.
Well, I mean, if you slide the back end out of your car, you tend to lose a lot of time, even in a front-wheel drive car, so that'll definitely help in keeping the battle close. And these guys are doing a good job of putting on a show for us, I will say that. They're really trying to make sure that this is as entertaining as it can be, and that's what makes the ClubSport series just so brilliant. It's honestly a fantastic series to watch and just to look at it. I still have jitters from that battle we saw earlier on, and we could see very closely round 2 beginning to heat up here, and we've had a Porsche go off. SRT Esports Green. He has binned it on the rumble strips and AstroTurf off of the final corner and just barely managed to keep it out of the wall.
Yeah, that's your last Porsche still running, and they actually have to cause German Sim Racing to deviate from their line, and it loses them the race lead in TCRs. So that is a huge, huge moment. SimRC will now lead the race in the second fastest class here today. As wow, that's so unfortunate for Andy Kuhn there. Absolutely nothing he could do about that one. It was the lapped car just in the wrong place at the wrong time. On the turn-in point to the corner, tried to make the apex. Apex was occupied by Porsche, and that just allowed the gap for SimRC to nip their way through quite quickly.
Well, like you said, to calm down a TCR driver and keep them calm is quite a feat. So they're going to be heated up really quickly, but Andy Kuhn does lose another spot, so he is down to 3rd now, and he's sliding back out a bit more. Those tires might be looking a little hot, actually, because that back end of the car keeps on sliding out. The back end steps out again, so that car really struggling all of a sudden here in this middle sector.
Yeah, you have to be very, very careful indeed. Especially with the new tire model, if you take a little bit too much out of the tires early on, you're going to be hurting a huge amount when it comes to the end of a stint. So you have to be very, very careful to keep those tires alive to go the distance. And German Sim Racing sliding the car around certainly isn't going to help in that department. You can see they've fallen off the back of the front train right now, and losing yet more time as the Porsches heading their way through as well. So that is ruled them out of contention for now for the race lead, but they can certainly come back at these guys given the right set of circumstances. Meanwhile, though, as I've been talking about this, SimRC have been able to get a bit of a gap over CXR Project Black as well. So this trio is finally starting to spread itself out a little bit here, which is probably for the best in terms of the drivers involved.
Yeah, so it'll at least allow things to, calm down a little bit. We're in the middle portion of the race, and right about, right around here, things will start to, fall off a little bit. Things tend to calm down, if not a lot, at least a little bit. And, it'll kind of allow things to just get themselves sorted out. We'll fall into a nice little rhythm. And then in the final hour of the race, things are going to start to pick back up again. That's how, these types of races tend to go. So that is going to be something to watch later on in the races. No doubt this will definitely be a group that we'll have to continue to keep our eyes on throughout the remainder of the hour and 20 minutes we have left or so.
The Hugh Ajas Mazda car looking to make a lot of progress to try and catch up back up to that Mivano Sim Racing team car, as Mivano is sort of under our noses here, have gotten themselves to the race lead in Mazdas. Of course, we were focusing on that brilliant battle for the race lead in the TCRs, but Mivano, in amongst the pit stop phase, have been able to get themselves ahead here, and Hugh Ajas trying to close themselves back in. They've been relatively active in our chat here as well. They were wondering if the German sim racing car didn't take tires in that battle for the race lead in TCRs. Well, the top three cars in TCRs are all on the same strategy, so there was absolutely no difference in terms of the tires in that situation. It's just they've really fallen off at the start of their second stint here. So that's the story in TCRs. Maybe things, well, the topic will start to shift as we get this MX-5 battle going.
Now they're about half a second away from each other, and as you see from the deltas at the bottom of your screen, on the bottom right, slowly closing down to 4 tenths now into the braking zone. But of course they still do have 2 faster classes trying to work their way through behind them as well. So, faster cars still playing a role in these battles for positions in your Mazda field.
Yeah. Hugh Ajas trying to make progress, but it's so difficult to do so, especially in the slower class where you constantly have to be looking behind and see where the next bit of higher class traffic is trying to work its way through on you. So there's really an art to driving in the slowest class of the field, no matter if it's in this sort of series where it's more of a sports car series, or if you have like prototype cars involved as well. It's all the same thing, especially in a Mazda where you are so slow compared to everyone else that you have to be so careful and just pick your places where you want to try and have a battle. Because you can see there, just in the space of a single straight, you just had 3 cars past them. Yeah, that's always gonna keep you on your toes if you're a Mazda.
Well, I mean, you can have like GT3 cars, and then they're going up against Miatas, so there is a very severe speed difference in D-Connery, and it is kind of what makes this such an interesting series as well, because usually, it's almost like you put, say, like a Star Mazda car, and then you put it up against the LMP1. That's kind of what we're working with right now here.
Yeah, it's, it is quite troublesome, and some of these, the TCR cars are doing around about 130 at the end of the back straight. Meanwhile, the Mazdas are doing like 110 miles an hour. Yeah, it's not exactly ideal. Of course, the difference with the Porsches will be just that bit bigger as well, as they are doing 135, 140 at the end of the back straight. So the speed differential is huge. As Sim RC, this is the all-race leader in TCRs. He's gone off the circuit. What has happened here for Lucas Dolce through the middle sector? He's made a complete mess of it, and it was one of the lap-down TCR cars. Oh, no, not a lap-down TCR car. It's one of the Porsches trying to work its way through the Hugh Ajas car down the inside at the left-hander. Just completely and utterly punt Sim RC off the circuit. That is so unfortunate for Sim RC, and they'll quite rightfully be in a serious investigation into that one.
That is definitely going to hurt their run for the lead. They're back down to 4th place or 3rd place now in their class, and everything else with your overall battle for the lead of the TCR class, it is certainly not. It really certainly is not anywhere close at the moment. Things have definitely split up big time thanks to the lap traffic, and now we might be seeing the SimRC ClubSport car trying to hunt back down those spots. But yeah, that's oh boy, that was an incident to say the very least.
Artifact Racing has been given another stop and go penalty because they didn't serve the first one correctly, which goes back to what I said about, well, in some series you're not allowed to take a pit stop service while you take a penalty, and it seems to be the case in this series as well. So Artifact Racing having to come down in again for the incorrect serving of the previous penalty. So for a car that was leading the race at the very start, got pole position, things seem to have been going from bad to worse for that number 78, as again they'll have to lose lots more positions coming down onto the lane again.
As we continue to watch as lap traffic continues to try to sort themselves out, but that was kind of what we were wondering. Us up here, we were kind of thinking it was like it was a stop and go penalty, but it was for 10 seconds. He never went up on the jack, so there wasn't tires, so it must have been a top up on fuel. It was early on in the race, and I mean, if you were allowed to do that per se, well, why wouldn't you? And I think that's kind of exactly what happened there. And they went 4. Did they just go 4 wide on the front straightaway?
They did. They did just briefly as the Mazdas decide to duel it out there. It's Caloth Racing versus the Huge Ass car, although that was a difference in terms of laps there. So that was more of a lapping procedure than the past 4 position. But yeah, 4 wide down the pit straight here at Okayama. There goes the Porsche of the Hell Racers. They have to dip 2 tires in the grass to do so, but they're through regardless as Movano and Huge Ass. This is the battle for the race lead in your Mazda field. 0.4 of a second separate them as Alex Coffard looks to try and grab that race lead away from Brandon Hawkin in this one. He has lost a bit of time lap on lap, as you can see in the lap time deltas on the bottom right hand side of your screen, but at least at the start of this lap he has really put in the hard yards, and now piling a lot of pressure onto the back of that Movano car.
He is within striking distance as the term goes, so Cofford, he will be able to try to get that. I won't be able to try to get the move done here. Loses a good almost half a second in those 2 corners, so Cofford really backing off here in this final sector, which seems to be where the Movano sim racing team has the speed over the Huge Ass car. So far, Brandon Hawkin, he is able to hang on to your lead in your Mazda field.
Yeah, continues to hold on, and looks a little bit better coming through the middle and last sectors than what Huge Ass are able to manage. You can see it coming out across the line. It was a 1:45.7 for Huge Ass, and it was a 1:45.3 for Movano. So all that progress made through the first sector by Coffard has been recovered coming through that final sector by Movano, and the TCR car involved isn't going to help that geodesic car working its way through. So still needs a little bit more on the part of Alex Coffard here to try and make this battle for the race lead a thing in the MX-5 class. You do have things going on elsewhere though. German Sim Racing and SimRC ClubSport relatively close here. Again, German Sim Racing though, they drift through turn 5, which is what they've been doing for basically almost the entirety of this second stint, and that can't be doing any good for the tires.
No, that's only going to be hurting the tires and shrinking that life down more and more. We were talking about how SimRC, after losing the lead in their class, he's going to be trying to fight hard to try to recover those lost positions. Well, he's going to be doing that now with Andy Kuhn for the German sim racing machine. And will he try to make, he's probably going to try to make the look down here off the last corner and on to the front straightaway. Will he get the momentum off the corner he needs though? Doesn't look like he will.
No, Andy Kuhn really aced the exit of the corner there, pulling away, even though he's the car ahead and the car that doesn't have the slipstream. Still, 0.3 of a second, 2.5 of a second as they hit their way through the first couple of corners of the racetrack. SimRC ClubSport you know, they've had a few trials, a few tribulations in this race. Of course, most recently being spun by the huge-ass Porsche coming through towards the middle of the lap, but they are still fighting, still in contention, and still very close indeed to the German sim racing orange car. They step out of line towards driver's right-hand side. They go, gaining ground all the time on the way into the braking zone of 5. Dolzer on the inside. Is he able to make it stick? He is. Perfectly placed pass there to get himself up into second.
German sim racing and Andy Kuhn seemed to kind of surrender that position there. You saw he tried to turn in sharp to make a look to make an over and under, but Dolzer did not get the pass on as fast as they were expecting it to, so he ended up having to back out of that attempt, and that is what allowed the sim racing ClubSport machine to get such a good run up on the third place car in class. So now Dolzer has one car in his sight, and that is going to be the CXR Project Black machine of Aaron D. Taylor.
Yeah, has to look forward now, try and make further progress as we head very close to the hour to go mark, 11 minutes away from doing so. And of course, we still have yet another set of stops to be looking forward to as well. So we have to keep an eye on that one and what happens in terms of it shaking up the order here. We do have a battle for P9 out there on circuit, though. That's Northside versus Racecraft, and well, just in the last couple of seconds, Racecraft have been able to work their way through up into that 9th spot. They will be impeded slightly by the TCR car, though. Have to head their way down the inside of it. Northside tried to follow their way through. They will be able to do so, but still in no position to be able to get one back over that Racecraft car. I'm just having a look back to see how this pass happened. It was a move down to the inside of turn 1 for Racecraft Esports. They were getting crowded towards the pit wall, but really that didn't phase them, and they were still able to pull off the pass. Oh, but Northside Racing, they've had a little bit of a moment there out of turn 5, out into the grass, and well, they get back going, but you know, after losing that position, well, we're at a risk of losing yet more with a spin like that.
Well, you said he wasn't even close to striking distance. Well, I don't think Alan Groth thought that, because he dove back from about 5 car lengths back up the inside, and Victor Tanaka saw that coming and actually went in deep just to make sure he wouldn't be hit, and that's a good thing it did, because Groth spun the car around. So that was probably the biggest lunge I have ever seen on the surface for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, a couple of months ago, we had a very similar one at the Circuit of the Americas with, I can't remember the name of the driver, but it was, I believe it was in the SEO series where they just had an absolute send. No, it was actually VRS GT iRacing World Championship. Absolute sends down the inside at turn 9 at Coda, I believe, just before the back straight, and it was from a huge country mile back. It looked very, very similar to that one. There's Element Sim Racing and Graphite Racing very close in those two Audis into turn 1, just 1.5 tenths of a second between these two. And look at the amount of time gained by Graphite Racing, 1.3 seconds, 0.6 and 1.4 seconds over the last 3 laps. They are on an absolute charge here of Graphite Racing, and well, let's see if they're able to pull off the pass when it matters.
We'll have to wait and see as John Ford for that Graphite car. He's going to try to get there. He got a much better drive off of the corner, but doesn't have the momentum to keep gaining ground down the straightaway. He's still looking to the inside, though, so he's probably going to try to outbrake him, and he is going to try to outbrake him up the inside, going to be side by side, and Sebastian Guest running really deep into the corner and gives up that spot to Graphite Racing.
Yeah, and well, that's probably the best plan in that situation, considering that you know, Graphite Racing currently very, very quick indeed, and they're gaining, you know, 2 seconds on that last lap, which is absolutely crazy. So you know, you don't really want to get in their way all that much. You're just going to end up losing yourself a lot of time, as opposed to, you know, trying to fight a lost cause in the grand scheme of things. So you can see that Miata just getting in the way a little bit as Graphite Racing now towards the right-hand side. Another TCR car on the cards here. VEC Sim Racing a little bit further down the road as Graphite look to continue on. And while this one's going on, why not? Let's go with a little bit of RaceSpotTV fan immersion on the board with Mr. Ford as part of that Graphite Racing 192 car. We'll be back in a bit. Well, that was a couple of laps on board with Graphite Racing 192, but in amongst that one, we've got this huge ass versus DGFX 49. This is the battle for P3 in your Porsches. They've been going at it hammer and tongs for the last couple of moments, and now we bring it to you on RaceSpotTV. You can see DGFX angling their way in, trying to find a line in through that turn 4, looking to try and gain the exit speed off the corner. Absolutely crucial to try and pull off a pass down in towards turn 5. Avoid those Miatas on the outside. Get yourself to the inside to try and get yourself into the corner. And well, right now, DGFX, they haven't been able to make much progress. They haven't been able to get themselves past that Nate Franklin piloted huge ass Porsche. But right now, this seems to be where all the battling is at, Nolan.
It certainly is. And one lap ago, just one turn before this one, they actually went side by side so close that Richard Skender ended up having two wheels in the sand on the outside of the run between 5 and 6. So this battle is certainly one to watch. And again, this is for third place overall. So definitely the one to watch right now. Just the Porsche runs a little bit wider. That'll allow the DGFX 49 Motorsports car to close ever closer to that back bumper.
And that huge S car doesn't have to worry about being penalized for the incident with one of the leading TCR cars just a bit earlier on. That one was ruled as a racing incident by the stewards, so they're able to continue on where they are, continue on fighting to stay on that podium. You can see how much mid-corner speed DGFX 49 had there. A little bit of a twitch from Huge Ass off the corner as well, as these Porsches get very, very sketchy towards the end of the stints here. Again, having to go down the inside of the Mazda on the way through the hairpin, and well, Huge Ass keeping themselves ahead right now, but that DGFX car is certainly looking very, very quick. They've gained marginally over the last 2 laps, but to gain any more, they have to get past. That's basically what that graphic is telling you.
That is, yeah, that's basically what that is, because they're right on the bumper. You can't get much closer to that in the Porsches. If he wasn't in closer, he'd be lunging up the inside into the corners, trying to make something work. Next passing opportunity will be coming up here on the front straightaway. So Richard Skender is going to need to get a good drive off of the final corner. And indeed, he does get a good drive with the final corner. Ooh. No, but ruins it by going into the gravel trap.
He still has some speed here on the way into turn 1. You can see the big move towards the inside. Is he going to sling it in? Well, not deep enough on the brakes to do so, but that's actually forced Huge Ass to make a mistake through the corner, and here comes Richard Skender around the outside at turn 2. He goes. Does he have enough momentum? I think he does, but Huge Ass still keeping themselves in contention on the way down to turn 4, but DGFX onto the brakes they go. They've got the position. A bit of a lub tap into the corner from Huge Ass, but still, the battle is done, at least this part of it, as DGFX have found their way onto the podium.
Well and valiantly fought by Nate Franklin to try to stay on the defensive. Didn't work out for him as much as he would have liked, so he's going to have to try to run him down, but it looks like Skender with the faster car will be able to pull a gap. He's already pulled a sizable gap already ahead of Franklin, so it looks like, you know, that DGFX car was that little bit faster, and it's going to have to go from there. This battle, for now, has been won by DGFX.
Yeah, it has, but are they able to continue on pulling out that gap? That is the bigger question. And of course, they're going to be setting their sights ahead as well, because well, Gold Racing Team Red is going to be the next car on their particular list, and with the lap times they've been running, it's a possibility, not a certainty, but you know, the last lap time wasn't representative because they had to make that pass with that 1:31.5, but if they're able to return to form, perhaps maybe start to play with the 1:30s, then maybe P2 could be on the cards. But right now, the gap stands at about 10 seconds between themselves and the Gold Racing Team Red car. So there we go. You also have to, of course, factor in that the front leading 2 cars in class right now, they did not take tires. Meanwhile, P3, 4, 5, 6 did take tires. So looking at that one, you would have thought that the cars behind really do have the advantage coming through the latter portion of this stint. But it seems like it's not enough to be able to make up the pace that they need.
Well, and sometimes it isn't, you know, it's kind of tricky that way, especially since we are later in a stint now, so it's a little harder to kind of judge, you know, kind of what could be affecting that, but that does seem to be, you know, the case. You know, just sometimes the pace just isn't there for you and you can't explain it. The Skender gets held up big time behind a very busted up Miata of Tom Van de Brandy, who is missing his engine hood.
Yeah, that engine breathing maybe a little bit more little bit more fresh air than designs, I suppose. Getting himself down onto the pit lane now, probably looking for that you know, this part spin at the you know, to try and find one for that MX-5. As right now, as Mivano and Hujas, the 2 Mazdas, the 2 race leading Mazdas, very close indeed, and this time around might be the opportunity for Hujas to get themselves around their competitors. So you can see they're sitting in that slipstream. They'll be able to get themselves in position to make a move down the inside at turn 5. They do go for it as they'll bring themselves door to door with their competitors, but they're not able to find their way through just yet. The bit of a cutback move coming through turn 6 won't result in anything. Get close for turn 5. Still piling on the pressure to that Mivano car, but Coffard not really able to do anything at this stage. It's all a big amount of, well, huge amount of pressure being piled onto Mivano, but Hawken dealing with it well right now as we ride on board with Coffard as we try to see how he negotiates this one.
So Coffard still trying to get whatever ground he can on his Mivano opponent. Up ahead, gets the better drive off the final corner. Still tucked in by that slipstream, definitely carrying just that little bit more speed. Down the front straight, it makes the look, but then gets on the brakes a little earlier and then tucks back in line. Trying to force Mivano in a little bit of a mistake, it looks like. And they're both going to have to yield, or at least Coffard is going to have to yield for a TCR on the way through.
Yeah, so as seems to be the case so many times, you know, once we start to see a pass happening for the MX-5s, all of a sudden, hey, there's lots and lots of lap traffic. Well, cars trying to come through on the lap traffic, shall we say. So this is going to be a bit of an interesting situation for Mivano and Hujas, trying to battle in and amongst of the basically train of cars trying to head their way through on them right now. They want to battle, but they're not being allowed to do so by everyone coming through. It might just happen into turn 5 this time around. Hujas had a little bit of a sense to work their way through, but again, it's another failed attempt at the pass. And this is, you know, such a tough situation for Goffard to be in here. You've had so many opportunities, but none of them have gone your way. And right now, you're just hoping that the percentages will play in your favor, and eventually one of these moves will work.
Well, things are about to get really interesting here, because right behind this is a 4-car battle for one spot in the TCR field. Plus a TCR trying to work his way through that just completely gives the door. They're 3 wide to the second final corner and making contact, and one spinning around, and that is the VEC sim racing car that has just gone off and into the, not quite into the barrier, but yeah, that was doomed to end in disaster.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that happening, I thought, well, one or more of these drivers is not going to come out of this battle in any fit state, and this time around it will be the VEC sim racing car as they get spinned out by the Real Pixel Motorsports car, as simply not enough room there for those 2 cars on the exit of the corner. And actually, DGFX 49 Motorsports, the Porsche, also got a piece of that one. So that's the P14 Porsche, had a bit of contact as well in and amongst that one. So contact across 2 classes. That's a slow car though, coming down that that back straight.
Meanwhile, as CXR and the 103 TCR cars decide to have a little bit of a fight here. So CXR now really battling quite hard here in this TCR field. This isn't the race leading CXR car. This is the CXR Project Black car in the mid-pack of the TCR field, as Team Vikings is the car that's hurting their way through, as well, they've been able to get that one done in quite comfortable fashion, helped somewhat by the huge ass Porsche working their way through. It was free ride briefly into the turn 8 hairpin, but everything gets itself sorted out here. As right now I'm just having a little bit of a look at the protest sheet. The contact between DGFX 49 Motorsports and NAB Racing has been ruled as a racing incident, so we haven't really had all that many penalties in the recent laps here. It's been more of the start of the race where they had a big backlog in penalties, but right now seemingly quiet, and I know the danger in saying that.
Yeah, seemingly quiet. We don't want to jinx things now. we certainly wouldn't want any more action to come our way. We're going to run out of time to talk about everything that's going on. We have had one of our first driver swaps of the day, though. Your TCR leader just came down to the CXR Project Black machine. Ruben Schilt jumping out to replace Aaron Taylor.
SimRC TCR race lead. They've been completely and utterly cleared out by a Porsche down at turn 4. That's H2 Performance looking to try and get the pass done on the inside over the lap traffic, but goes straight into the driver's side door there of SimRC, as that is a big moment. Passenger side door, excuse me, I'm used to the British layout of things, but still, look at that. SimRC, bang, absolutely unsighted, nothing they can do, and well, they were in the race lead, they still are, but now they have a bit of damage to that right-hand side.
Wow, that was, we're going to look at to slow it down here. That was a huge shunt to the side of that car. Look at that, lifted up on 2 wheels too. That's how big of a hit that was. That Porsche really came flying in right out of left field, didn't it? Like, well, actually came flying in out of right field, if you want to take that note. And unsurprisingly, Luke Stolzer is going to bring it down into the pits. Are you surprised about that? Because I can't say that I am.
Well, it's not surprising. I mean, it's on time for the pit stop cycle anyway, so it's not like he's going to become off cycle for the pit stop strategy as a result of doing this. It's just a benefit that he can maybe get a little bit of damage repaired. They will go for the driver swap as well, so Patrick Young going to be behind the wheel of that one, so he will be finishing off the race presumably for SimRC. Right bang in the middle of that 45 to 55 minute pit window, so this should be good until the end of the race. It's going to be a bit of a battle that we're seeing also in TCRs, a bit of a battle in Porsches as well, as everyone seems to really want to get themselves going forward here just before those final couple of pit stops. We're having a look at the battle, one of the battles in your TCR class on the way down in towards turn 5. So this is going to be for positions 34, 35, 36, 37 overall. As involved in this one, we get to talk about it finally, but E-Team Brit, of course, a car that's entirely piloted by drivers with various disabilities. So this is a really interesting one here, and they seem to be doing very well, you know, considering what they're all having to deal with behind the wheel of that Audi. And you know, it'd be very good for them to get themselves stuck into this particular battle to show us what they're made of.
It is, you know, really awesome to see, you know, all, you know, drivers like that just competing so hard up front for these spots, going full speed with, you know, higher speed cars in the same class as well. So that is awesome to see for Team Brit. Currently Ben Warren piloting that car, and, you know, it is something you don't see every day in sim racing. So the fact that they're, you know, so incredibly competitive in a series that's, you know, as crazy as this, definitely a seriously awesome sight to behold.
Yeah, it's great. You see disabled drivers competing in the real world thanks to various modifications that you're able to do with the car. Hand controls is an example of one of those, where you can have the throttle and the brake on your hands if you've lost the use of your legs, for example. But these guys showing that you can do the exact same thing in sim racing, and arguably sim racing is a little bit more accessible for them due to the amount of modifications that they can do to their PC setups. For example, there's only so much you can do when you have a real cockpit of a real car. When you have all of your own equipment and can come up with your own methods of dealing with things to make things more comfortable for you, then arguably this is a lot better for people with disabilities.
It really much is, and it allows them to, get the thrill of it without having to go through any of the danger. And it isn't the most, costly thing to do either. Like, it is truly something else, how how far technology has come, and how far things can go, as the real Pixel motorsport car from Wolfgang Wildenauer is going to come down into the pits now. But it is just truly astonishing what technology can do for people with disabilities, and how it can just help people to experience the same thrills as everybody else. It's something else, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, it is great to see as Ben Warren will continue on his way here, of course, going side by side with the Porsche on the exit of the pit lane there. That's one of your leading Porsches, the huge S car, having to come down in and get their final pit stop service done. We are waiting for basically the rest of that Porsche field to head their way in. It's basically Hell Racers. We're waiting for Fisher Motorsport, Racecraft Esports as well to head their way in. As right now, once Team Hell Media have completed their pit stop, I think there will be Huge Ass Motorsports to the front of the field, if I'm not mistaken here. So they've made great progress as part of that Porsche class. As now I'm having a look back towards TCRs, because whenever we need battling, TCRs is usually where you decide to look. And right now there are a couple coming down in that mid-pack. Just cycling myself through to get to them, which is quite hard to do sometimes, but there we go. As right now, just having a little bit of a look at the cars of SRT Esports, Real Pixel Motorsports, Evolved Racing Team Red, all relatively close on track together, as we have a penalty coming through for the Gold Racing Team. It's been judged as a stop-and-go penalty for them, so the number 2 has to bring that car down onto the pit lane.
That is Jeffrey Garzado that has received that penalty. The reason was for causing a collision on the back straightaway. So again, not the start to their day that they wanted to see. That car is down in the pits already and completely mangled.
Yeah, that Porsche, not as it rolled off the factory floor. So I doubt he'll be able to even serve a penalty at this stage, let alone get himself towards the end of this race. So that will have to be judged post-race, unfortunately for them. Meanwhile, you can see the 22 and the 97 Porsches here, and that's Gold Racing Team Red down the inside at turn 5. Bit of a contact off the corner. That's the Meraki Racing car that bore the brunt of that one. So that's Gold Racing Team Red now up into P6 in the Porsche class. Well worked pass for them, a little bit scrappy coming through the exit of the corner, but love taps are all fair and game, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Oh boy, here we go again. More lap traffic getting in the way of your lead lap cars, and of course there's cars battling for position up in front of here as well in your TCR field. That's your 3-way battle for 26th overall that they're coming up on now. And of course you have cars like Elliot Roberts for Artifact Racing and Richard Skender for the DGFX machines. They're trying to get involved in this fight as well to make it a 4-car battle for 6th. Oh, look at this. Barak is going to try to look at the inside, gets into the grass, but has to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, he was looking for the opportunistic move while Gold were involved with trying to get past those TCR cars. As we see Artifact Racing as well, this will be a battle for position for them as well. They're trying to squeak their way through, won't do so just yet. They have to stay in line, but of course Artifact Racing, they've had such an up and down race with penalties, 2 penalties, because they didn't serve the first one correctly, and now they're looking to get themselves up into P6 as they make the pass complete. Do they in towards turn 5? Have to wait a little bit longer to be able to do so, but off the corner they get themselves ahead. So up into P6 they go, and they might be on for a top 5 finish here despite all that's happened to them.
Yeah, so that would be an extremely good recovery drive, you know, for the Artifact Racing machine. And you know, Elliot Roberts now behind the wheel for that car. It would definitely be something for him to, you know, be able to bring that car up and get it into a top 5 finish despite so much misfortune. It is definitely within the realm of possibility. The challenge is going to be keeping, you know, 5th place, because we still have 40 minutes to go. So it's going to be a very, very interesting battle for 5th place if that manages to shape up as we think it's going to.
And well, it might be difficult for them to get into 5th place. It might be difficult for them to hold on to position as well at the end of things, because they do have to come down in and get a final stop done. I don't think they've done so just yet, but still a decent recovery drive for Artifact Racing. Of course, that you know, it's all been self-inflicted. You know, if you consider jump starts, you know, they're in control of their own destiny on that one. Let's look at that! Wow, look at that down the inside of the Mazda coming through turn 4 from way, way far back. That one's an interesting one, and Elliot Roberts certainly holding no prisoners when it comes to lap traffic here. He wants to have a little bit of a flourish here despite the bad start to the day that Artifact Racing have had.
I mean, hey, go big or go home, right? So he's certainly choosing to go big as he goes with the inside of the Miata. Closes in really quickly into the back of Jean-Philippe Gendron for Gold Racing Team Red. Gets around the TCR. Will he look up the inside? He loses the back end and spins it around. Keep the power in it. Gets it into the grass and manages to get it off the racing line. Loses more spots. The bad luck for Artifact Racing continues.
Yeah, it was just a bit of a lock-up on the brakes into turn 8 that, well, unfortunately for Elliot Roberts, has resulted in a spin. It forced Gold and SimRC to try and take avoiding action on the outside, but no one else getting caught up in that one, which is what we like to see. So Artifact Racing can get back going and no one else is impeded. But car coming off the pit lane here directly into traffic might cause a couple of problems, but drivers well aware of that fact of that CXR car coming off of the pit lane. Artifact Racing trying to get past the TCR car as well. That's SimRC ClubSport, which is one of your front-runner TCR cars. Just a couple of moments, well, sort of in the middle part of the race, but they've fallen by the wayside. It looks like a little bit here, as Patrick Young having to drop those couple of positions. He's got one extra stop compared to everyone else here, it seems, so we'll have to see how that one works out for him coming towards the end of the race. As right now, Huge Ass looking to make progress once again. They have a bit of lap traffic ahead of them, and it's lap traffic of the same class as well, which is always a tricky situation. You're in identical machinery, so that makes it inordinately more difficult to try and get past, especially while they're trying to battle. That's Meraki Racing versus Artifact. Meraki's gone deep on, coming through turn 8, and, well, has to give up the position there. And Huge Ass, well, they'll be feeling very nervous about what's happened in front of them, because never do you want the 2 lapped cars that you're wanting to pass having to go side by side directly in front of you, and you know, if they have an instant, you're in prime position to be collected in it.
Yeah, so drivers continuing to kind of glance over their shoulders and certainly try to peer harder out of their windscreens to spy for any sign of danger up ahead, as Roberts clips the curbing, tries to get around the TCR. He's going to get that one sorted. TCR going to continue to hang it wide, letting in Franklin through on the left. They are coming up to another batch of lap traffic, full of drivers trying to both lap each other and battle for position as well, including your battle for third position overall as well.
It's the Gold Racing Team red car and the DGFX 49 that are going to be battling it out here. So that's going to be a bit of an interesting one, all things considered. As Huge Ash trying to work their way through. That's VEC Sim Racing they're currently trying to deal with, as they'll get through rather comfortably. So yeah, the next car down the road is that Artifact Racing car, which is the next target for Huge Ass. We've also got DGFX and Gold. So, for Huge Ass, it's going to be positions potentially up to P3 that they'll be able to get before this race is done here. They're all in quite close proximity.
Some very, very close proximity still in all of these battles, and certainly plenty of time for different battles and wars to heat up on the track as well. We are closing in to the final half hour of today's race. This is going to be a very interesting finish, to say at the very least, as we look up front to your battle for third place overall, just half a second apart.
Half a second between Gold Racing Team and DGFX 49, as Richard Skender is going to be the pilot of the car, currently trying to reel in Jean-Philippe Gendron for P3 in your fastest class here today. Skender 131.983 that last time around compared to the 132.077 for Gold Racing Team, and Gold held up a little bit coming through turn 5 thanks to the TCR car ahead of them, allows DGFX to really eat into the gap now and are in prime position to try and get the nose in somewhere, but they do lose a little bit more time. Just speaking about that, and well, they gain more time coming down on the brakes in towards turn 8. So all of these times that Gold Racing Team has really been impeded by the lap traffic, DGFX have made the most of it.
They have made the most of it, but they just haven't been able to find, the gap that they need to close in, and that is something that they're still looking for. Oh, and all right, so Skender taking an interesting exit line off of the final corner and runs into the dirt, bringing some of it back out onto the track, but still continuously close to the braking zone. It seems that the DGFX cars, they are really, really good on the brakes. They definitely triumph over Jean-Philippe Gendron in that department, I feel. But it's in terms of, the mid-corner and maybe exit speed as well, that they're kind of losing a little bit of time on.
It does seem to be the case. Skender, well, body language of the car, you can see him taking the sort of half a line towards the inside compared to Gold Racing Team into turn 4. But not going to result in much in this situation. Just have to sit in that slipstream and just work at edging that gap in bit by bit by bit. You can see Skender trying to basically scare Jean-Philippe into a mistake here. It's not really working, as Gold Racing Team haven't really put a foot wrong over the last couple of laps. We do have a unsafe driving penalty being given to the CXR Project Black car, so that's the 299 car, which is the MX-5 currently towards the back of that field for unsafe driving. That's a 30-second stop and hold, which is a very, very long one indeed, but not as long as what the DGFX 49 Motorsports number 47 car had to deal with. They had a 60-second stop and hold for an unsafe rejoin. So there's some major penalties being given out at this late stage in the race.
Some serious penalties as well, and in fact another one just given out as well to Neil Andrews, who was also black flag for unsafe driving, and I think that was the one that you were mentioning. And then we had one a while ago as well, Sky Willis, who was black flagged for an unsafe rejoin of the track as well. So quite a few penalties being handed out now later on into the race. Definitely a little more unfortunate. Going to look further down the order now to your battle in the Miatas further up front between second and third place, just over a second apart, and as you'll see, has slowly been losing quite a bit of time over the past few laps.
Yeah, it looks like right now the Bavano stranglehold on the top two, still looking relatively comfortable. It's Marcelo Pagnan currently leading the race in the 298 Mazda with Mivano 289 in second place. Of course, they had that penalty for registering with the wrong car numbers. So the car numbers in sim and the car numbers that you see in the top left as we look at the head-on down in towards turn 1, those are the wrong numbers that they've signed up with, which is why they had to start at the back of the grid. But regardless of that, they are now P1 and P2. So it seems like nothing can stop the Mivano cars, not even back of the grid starts.
Well, it shows that those cars are really very fast, and they must have some seriously, talented drivers, driving the two Mivano cars, who are definitely going to go to open up the streets. I know English. They're looking to open up the season strong with the good old 1-2 finish here at Okayama. And right now, if they can hold third place away from Hugh Jass, they are definitely in the perfect position to get that done.
Yep, they certainly are. There's a couple of people in chat just remarking about how many times I say Hugh Jass. So it's a fun team name to say, and we're not going to avoid it like the Radio Le Mans people did. So they said HJ Motorsports. No. You have to say the full name. It's the policy. As Kyle Smith as part of that Hugh Jass Mazda. Currently in P3, trying to work on trying to catch up to the two leading Mivano cars right now. 146.577 last time around for that 237 car, and that's a 145.4 last time around for the Mivano 289. So the Mivano cars seem to have just the better pace here. They're just extending this gap time after time after time, and it doesn't look like anyone in that Mazda field can deal with it. But meanwhile, look at this down the pit straight. So many cars in the same piece of real estate here, and that's going to be an interesting one considering the speed differential between all three of these classes here today. You have to be very, very careful. Go on.
We had a big moment just now. Jean-Philippe Gentron in third place, just about wiping out the 198 machine of Ruben Schild as they went 3 wide with the Miata trying to get around them. Drove through the back end of the Audi and nearly piled through. Replay now up on your screen. I thought they were going to go completely off and scream into the barrier.
Yeah, let's have a look at it on boards. Let's see exactly what happens here with Gold Racing Team. Oh, that is so close with the CXR car. My word. Can't get any closer than that. Gold Racing Team Red have really gotten away with one there. Oh, that's a very, very heart-racing moment. Basically a jump scare, but in motorsport. That's how I'm going to call that one. As Jean-Philippe Gendron hits his way through, perhaps trying to calm himself down after that little scare. As half an hour left in this race now. Still a lot to play for, especially in that Porsche class, in that TCR class as well, because Gold Racing Team Red, Artifact Racing, DGFX 49 Motorsports, all within relatively close contention here, about a second between each car respectively, as you can just see the huge crowd of cars on their way down into turn 1. The vast majority of their field basically in one shot there. As you can see Artifact and DGFX. DGFX starting to drop off the back now. You can see 1.3 seconds loss, 1 second loss over the last 2 laps. So not really able to keep themselves in contention here. They're currently sitting a second behind at this stage, but need to do a lot more in terms of keeping touch with that Artifact Racing car.
This really is a line of cars kind of going line astern, isn't it? In this shot, it shows you, this is actually a perfect shot. We need to show you the speed difference between the 3 classes. There you see the Porsche and the Audi again going 3 wide around the Miata. That is, there you go. That's actually a big shot to show the speed differentials between the 3 cars. It's such a severe difference, and it's what makes this racing so difficult for these drivers, but so complicated as well. That battle for third place, though, it is beginning to close on in as Elliot Roberts for Artifact Motorsports continues to get ever closer to the back of Jean-Philippe Gendron.
Getting closer and closer. start thinking about the past, perhaps, in the not-too-distant future. The DGFX 49 down the inside of the TCR car they go. Still forward in this one. Car down onto the pit lane. That's the Artifact Racing 78 car coming down in for their final stop of the day. They left that one a little bit late, with them taking a sneaky 10-second fuel stop when they shouldn't during their penalty, which is why they had to come down in again. As Gold Racing Team Red, the battle up on screen, that's Team Hell Media. Hella Media that has lost the position there, so as a result, Gold Racing Team Red now up into P2 overall. And well, Hell Media, I didn't quite see how this one was done. It looks like it was just a pass, simple pass down the inside at turn 1 for Gold Racing Team Red that has been able to put themselves ahead here. So looks like that Hell Racers might be a little bit too far down the road for them, around about 6.5 seconds. But getting up into P2 for Gold Racing Team Red still will be a brilliant finish at the end of the day.
Certainly will. So, excuse me. So the Gold Racing Team Red Porsche continuing to try to push around and pick up those spots where you can. They are still 6 seconds behind Marcus Simonson for the Hell Racers right up front in the lead. Do you think they might be able to close in that 6-second gap as we look back to your battle for third of the TCR Quaxes? I'm not thinking they will at this point.
Well, they have the benefit of the newer tires because Hell Racers didn't take any tires on that last stop. Meanwhile, Gold Racing Team Red did. So they have that advantage in hand. They set a 1:30.9 the last time around, which is incredibly quick, getting within a couple of tenths of a second of their best lap time of the day. So they're really, really feeling the pace at this moment in time. And Hell Racers, well, they're going to run out of tires at some point and might just slide back into the clutches of Gold Racing Team Red. So potentially a battle on for the race lead in your fastest class of the day. As meanwhile, Gold Racing Team going to be involved in the battle once again. Maybe that's Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing getting themselves up into P3. So Gold Racing Team, over the last couple of laps, they have lost 2 positions here, I believe. So it's not really been a great run of things for them here in this one. We have the next car on the list as far as Geodesic is concerned. That's the German Sim Racing orange car that's been competitive all day, but they have trouble towards the end of stints with keeping the tires alive, so they have to be very, very careful. Meanwhile, you can see this huge gaggle of cars heading their way down the back straight, 3 wide, just casually as Artifact Racing on their recovery drive down the inside of the DGFX 49 Porsche. That wasn't a powerful position, but a position nonetheless in terms of the track position. That's very close there. Artifact Racing actually shoving out German Sim Racing orange there. That was a bit boisterous and loses German Sim Racing a bit of time. And now they can come under threat from Geodesic.
Won't be able to make anything look until the front straightaway, provided nothing dramatic happens with Michael Zank for that German Sim Racing machine, as they're going to be coming around for the final 2 corners now. And if you look up front, that is Elliot Roberts in the Porsche for Artifact Racing, again on their recovery drive from a lot of bad luck today. And behind them is Jared Joel for the DGFX car. Of course, there's a 2-lap separation in those 2 cars, but it does look like Joel does have the race speed.
Yeah, he does seem to have quite a bit of it. As now down the S's they go towards that braking zone of the Atwood curve. Absolutely fantastic. I really rate this racetrack in general. It's, of course, one of the tracks that's in the base content of iRacing, so everyone gets to experience it through those rookie series on the road side of things. And I've always enjoyed it, and I've always wanted it to, have more of a place in amongst the top series here on iRacing. It just never really gets the spotlight all that often, despite being a relatively decent track.
Well, and this series is showing exactly why it's a decent track. It can provide some extremely exciting racing. You know, it's got the very long straights, it's got a lot of elevation change, it's got sharper turns, it's got a more technical section. It's honestly got a little bit of everything. The only thing it's really missing is, you know, a tight chicane yet. You know, not every track needs a tight chicane to make it exciting, and this track is a perfect example of that.
No chicanes to be seen. Left-right sweepers, yes, but nothing more. Tight radius in terms of the changes of direction. German Sim Racing Orange, though, having to try and keep Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing at bay. Geodesic, 7.5 tenths of a second gained on lap 72. And it's going to be another gain here on lap 73. Graphics haven't quite updated, but it's a tenth of a second gain on this last lap for Geodesic Racing. So keeping themselves within range, keeping themselves within that draft, and that's kind of all you have to do. Is a car off ahead of them, though. That's Kalioth Racing, the 263 that's had a couple of problems there, that Mazda, able to rejoin the racetrack, but Geodesic positioned for a move into 5. Don't think they're going to be able to do so just yet. Just biding their time. They still have about 21 minutes remaining, so there's still a lot of time for Geodesic to make this pass. They don't really have to rush things, considering that CXR Project Black, well, the race leader, is about 8.5 seconds down the road, which arguably might be a little bit too far for 20 minutes remaining.
Yeah, so it's looking like the race lead is beginning to be get settled just that little bit more now, and it is kind of the way that things tend to sort themselves out as you continue to look at your battle for that second place in the TCR category. It's Blake that continues to try to find a way through that German Sim Racing opponent up ahead. He's going to be within the slipstream, though. Might be able to make it into turn 1 if he can get a good drive.
Might be able to. Geodesic keeping themselves in that draft. Just keeping themselves in contention. You don't have to go for any risky moves at this stage. Maybe when it gets to a couple of laps to go, you start thinking about moves you wouldn't think about for the middle and early part of the race, just in terms of desperation to try and get yourself by. Geodesic just waiting for a more obvious opportunity to be able to do this one. So it's a very passive way of driving, but it's certainly a valid strategy when it comes to battles exactly like this one. Of course, you just work your advantages around the racetrack. You just size up your opponents just for a couple of laps. See where they're strong, see where they're weak, and you can make a decision about where to pass based on that information. So that might just be what the strategy that Splaknak is deciding to go for in this particular battle.
Very much so indeed, as even closer now down through the corner. Still about a third of a second separated the two cars, and it is closing. Still not close enough to make a look. He's going to look to the outside and then tucks it in tight, but he's not going to be close enough. So he is being very patient. I'll give Neck that. He is being very, very patient, and patience, even late in the race, it is something that you need if you want to get a decisive pass done. Unless you want to just throw it up the inside under a hard braking move, which, you know, that can work as well.
I mean, pouring cars.
Fair.
Is probably the phrase that you're looking for. As Rev Match, well, they'll go down the inside as that Porsche, so they will split up the battle a little bit for now, and as long as they don't impede things too much, I don't think these drivers will have to worry, as they'll have to wait to try and get past German Sim Racing Orange. They will do so without slowing them down all that much, so German Sim Racing will be happy about that one, as Alpine Stars, again, the objective of that for them is just to keep close and look to try and maybe force German Sim Racing into a mistake or manufacture a pass of their own once the opportunity arises. Don't just go for something hopeful just yet. Like I said, last couple of laps, yes, you'll start to see more desperation, but right now, simply don't have to. While this one goes on, I'm very curious to see what is happening elsewhere. We do have the Hugh Jas versus Mivano P2 to P3 in your Mazda class battle, but it seems like that one has spread out quite a bit, not really looking possible for Hugh Jas to try and get themselves back in there. Yeah, you can see why. That lap time delta in the bottom right, 1.8 seconds lost, 4.6 seconds lost on lap 69, and 2 seconds lost on lap 70. It seems like the Mivano cars simply have another gear in those MX-5s and just able to pull away, and Hugh Jas not really able to do anything about it. Porsches, though, that's looking relatively calm, and I say that with a little bit of caution, considering that this battle for maybe not the race lead, but the battle for P2, 2 and 3 might just become a thing at the end of this race, depending on how things go. So we're in that stage of the race where we're just setting up for maybe some excitement on the final couple of laps.
Sometimes that's what you need to do. You need to have the calm before the storm, and that is what this whole race has been building up to. It's been really stormy in many different ways throughout this entirety of the race, throughout the past 2 hours and 10 minutes, and for the final 16 and a half, we are definitely looking to be getting into some much bigger storms. It tries to look at the inside, and we'll get that done.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Well worked pass. Nothing else you can say about that one. It's not a pass that I can get hyped up about. We just made it look so easy, So Geodesic Racing able to get themselves through, and that's up into P2 in your TCR class, and CXR Project Black, who is currently leading that TCR class, still 8.5 seconds ahead. So in 16 minutes, I'm not rating Geodesic's chances of getting up there and making a duel bit at the front of the field in your TCR class. So that one looks pretty secure for CXR Project Black, but not really saying everything is utterly sealed just yet, because we've had so many races where late race drama has happened and things get shaken up at the front of the field. So we just have to wait to see what happens there. And there's also an entire possibility that German Sim Racing might be able to come back at this position, but with the gap that Geodesic's been able to put over them already, it's not looking likely.
So still looking more and more unlikely that battle will be able to be, or that any positions will be able to be made up, as the gap between Michael Zanke and Blake Neck continues to stretch out, now between the battle for 20th overall and 30th overall. Look at that. Anders Christensen in the Porsche trying to make his way through, and Douglas Rice in the touring car. You can see just at the top of the shot there as well.
Absolutely. So Geodesic trying to work their way through on same car traffic, same class traffic. Always a tough situation. You'll show the nose towards the inside, and forces CXR Project Black, the 199 car, not the CXR car that's leading this race, forces them to go wide through turn 8. Meanwhile, P7, P8 in your Porsche class. Well, Artifact Racing, it seems like they've been involved in everything here this evening, and looks like they're going to get involved in something for the end of the race as well, as they try to haul themselves up into 7th place. Of course, those 2 penalties certainly haven't helped things, and now they look to at least try to secure a decent haul of points here. P7 will be a very, very decent finish indeed, considering what they've been through throughout this race. Look how close they're getting coming through turn 7. That's very close. You can almost see that they're touching coming through there. They have to go down the inside of the Mazda. There's a TCR ahead that they have to be concerned about as well. And here we go. Oh, that's a big, big punt there as 84 gets spun around and, facing in the wrong direction. He has to get that car spun back around, but Fisher Motorsports, nothing they can do. They just got completely rammed from behind.
Oh boy, they were getting so close to the back end of they were getting so incredibly close to the back end, and that was just, oh boy. And then it just all went so wrong, as you see on the replay. Benjamin Fisher manages to get that rolling again, but that was a disaster. Fisher takes it down into the pit lane now. Oh my goodness, that was again, we have to have the calm before the storm, and unfortunately that storm ended with the crash of thunder and two Porsches colliding.
Someone trying to drop hints in the chat. Someone says, tip to broadcast, look at TCR fuel and laps left. We'll certainly keep an eye on things if they have to hit a certain fuel number for the end of the race. Thanks for the tip off there, as Full Send Racing looking to get themselves involved in a bit of a battle here for, well, around about P7 in your TCR class. And well, it's well, not the car that they're currently passing. That's not for position. That's the AOD Racing car that's currently a couple of laps down on these guys. Gold Racing Team is the car that Full Send Racing is going to be concerned about, the car that's now second in line as they work their way through. So Gold Racing Team, of course, they were towards the front of the field, especially in that second stint, but ever since that, it seems like the only direction they've been going in is backwards. But you know, a good final flourish here, haul themselves up into P7. That would be a good points haul for them at the end of the day, and certainly looking likely considering the lap time deltas over the last couple of laps.
Certainly, to say the least. And you know, when you're in a race, when you're in a series where there's so few races, like I'm counting them up here. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You only have 6 races in this season. So when you're in a series like that, every single point can matter, and it can be, which means we could have a whole lot of points shuffling in between races, as well as, oh my goodness, Dean Ledger nearly getting punted around by Dennis Ippenberg for the Gold Racing Team car. And of course, Ledger is going to go hard on the defense as they come down towards the hairpin bend, slowly transitions back to the left, but then keeps it on the right, really late on the brakes, goes the Gold Racing Team car and cuts it in too deep, and Ledger hangs on to that spot for now.
Yeah, he does. Full Send Racing, well, they're having to defend from the full sends of Gold Racing Team right now. Coming up to 10 minutes left remaining in this race. It's going to be around about 6 laps here for at least the TCR cars to get themselves to the end. Of course, that can change depending on the timing that the overall race leader comes across the line. So you do have to be careful. Make sure you have enough fuel to get yourself to the end of the race, and it's usually good to put in a lap extra fuel than you think you need, just in case you get that unexpected +1 lap right at the end. So if it's possible, do overfuel slightly here on this final stint if you can. But there we go, Gold Racing Team. Look at that big old move down to the inside of turn 1. Not able to complete it though, but that was a big statement being made.
Well, I'm going to quote you here and say touring cars. That's touring car racing for you. The battle is continuing to heat up. He clearly wants to get away through. He even looks at the inside when there was no chance of even going for a move. So he is definitely trying to go, Dennis Sittenberg, to get that spot no matter what. No matter what, he's basically saying this spot is going to be mine through one way or another by the end of this race. And we have less than 10 minutes to go now. Slowly but surely, running out of time. Looks it up the inside. Can he make it work this time? Nearly makes contact. Could have been a sheet of paper in between there, but no. Ledger hangs on.
Name that Gold Racing Team Full Send Racing and not the car ahead, because that's exactly what they're doing right now. As Eipenberg trying to work his way through, and here comes a Porsche that might just open the door for Gold Racing Team. Not quite in the position to capitalize on that one, as the Porsche has to go the long way around at turn 9 now. Able to squeak their way on the exit. The TCR car didn't leave them a lot of space there, and actually causes them to make a mistake through the penultimate corner. Now Gold Racing Team in prime position to work their way through and try and get a good run out of the final corner, which they do so. Forces that full send car to go very defensive right to the pit wall on the main straight.
Gold Racing team having to go the long way around. If they're able to keep track position here, they have the inside for the next corner. They'll get leaned on, though, coming through the exit of 1 and into 2. They make contact yet again. Full send into the gravel, into the barrier they go. That is Gold Racing team through, but I think the stewards will have a look at that.
Oh, that was just inevitable. You could just tell they were getting so close. I was surprised they didn't bin it coming off of turn number 1, and they made it to turn 2, but there was just no way that that was going to end with both of them, leaving there side by side. And sure enough, it was Steen Ledger to go right side square into the barriers. I don't see a lot of damage on the side of that car, though, which is the good news for Full Send Racing. They could very well work their way back up through to the front.
Graphite Racing down in for a splash and dash towards the end of the race here, and this might be where it gets concerning for a couple of TCR cars. Do they have enough fuel to get to the end or not? That is the big question. Graphite Racing certainly didn't feel that they had enough to go to the end, and well, with coming up to 6.5 minutes remaining, now you have a slightly different doubt in some of the TCR cars' minds. Do you have to come in for the splash and dash? Are you okay to get to the end on the fuel? That is the big question. And well, right now you can see that Graphite Racing car out there on circuit just trying to get themselves back around. Having a look back, though, you can see CXR doing an absolutely fantastic job right at the front of the field. Have been for the vast majority of this final stint. Hopefully they don't have any fuel concerns coming towards the end of this one. We'll just have to wait and see. They do miss pit lane this time around, so they don't seem to be panicked. They are running still very competitive lap times, on pace with pretty much everyone else. There's no one I'm seeing that's going into basically mega fuel saving mode, so we should be okay, touch wood. But with that one car coming down in for a splash and dash, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. And sometimes all it takes is one car that comes down to spark that extra little bit of doubt, and maybe it could result in cars coming down into the lane as well. But so far, everybody else appears to be staying out, and like you said, definitely not a lot of drivers, if any, in extreme fuel conservation mode. So we have 2 more TCRs that are just now in the lane. Philip Russell for the CXR Project Black coming back out with David Roth from Artifact Racing right ahead of him. So 2 more TCRs came down into the lane.
This is now going to get fun, I suppose. Maybe not fun for the drivers, but certainly fun to try and figure out what is going to go on here in the TCR cars for the pit stops towards the end of the race. The splashes and dashes, just that few laps of fuel and go. How many drivers, how many teams will have to do so, and how many have been able to save enough to get themselves to the checkered flag? And of course, the whole +1 laps sort of situation potentially will also throw a spanner into the works for those drivers that might feel safe in terms of their fuel. May not if this race goes 1 lap longer. So now this is getting interesting in the TCR class for a different reason. Usually we say it's exciting because of how much great battling there is in this class, but now we have this strategy element coming in. Makes things a little bit more complicated.
There you see the graphic at the bottom of the screen for the TCR class. 8 seconds separating the CXR Project Black car from the Alpine Stars Blake Neck. Blake Neck has gained 7 tenths, but it's just not going to be nearly enough at this point to make it through to the end of the race. Looking to go 4 wide behind them, nearly, just about, is your battle for 4th place in the Porsche class as well, which is right behind your TCR leader.
Yeah, well, a lot of cars in the same piece of track there, working their way through. Battle for P4, battle for P1. CXR Project Black, Alpine Stars, Geodesic Racing.
that's the battle that I thought wasn't going to happen once Geodesic got past German Sim Racing Orange, but they've been able to make it work. They've been able to reel that CXR Project Black car in. And now the gap is down to a couple of tenths of a second. And CXR Black, race leader in TCR, they're going to have to come down in for that splash and dash right at the end of the race. Geodesic Racing, do they similarly have to come down in? No, they are out and staying out at least one more lap here. Can they go to the end? It might net them a race win if they're able to do so.
Oh, that is huge right there. This changes everything for Blake Neck. Now, the question is, does he have enough fuel? We've got less than 3 minutes to go. We only have about 2 or 3 laps left of this race now. If Neck has that amount of fuel, he may very well have just won this race from the great strategy call to put that little bit extra fuel in the car. But Ruben Schild coming back out onto the track now. But this has just gotten a whole lot more interesting in your TCR category.
Geodesic Racing, they are up 23 spots from where they started. They've been on an absolute charge, and now they are in the seat at the front of the field. But do they have the distance? Do they have the mileage in that Audi? Can they go the distance here is the big concern. I'm just going to listen in to hear if they are fuel saving the hell out of that car. I'll just stay quiet for now and we'll listen to them into turn 8. That doesn't sound like a big lift and coast if they are doing it, but still, Blake Neck behind the wheel of the that TCR car. Is he going to head into pit lane this time around? No, he's still going to stay out. So just needs to do that one more time and he'll win in the TCR class.
Just one more time around for Blake Neck to try to get through to the end of this race. That is going to be absolutely crucial for that Audi. Does he have the distance? As we look to your overall race leader now, who's just coming down through the final sector of the track now, Marcus Simonson for Hell Racers. He started in 20th place, and he is looking to win after starting so far down the order in his class.
Yeah, it's going to be the final lap for him. Coming towards the end of the final lap, Hell Racers, exactly as you said it, Nolan, they started in P20, and now Marcus Simonson will come out of the final corner. It will be the Hell Racers winning the first round of Season 3 here of the ClubSport Series in partnership with DGFX. Very well done to them. A very well run race indeed. Geodesic Racing still out there in P1 in TCR. Vivano still P1 in MX5s as well. But can Alpine Stars Geodesic go the distance here? It looks like they should be okay in terms of the fuel. They were basically gifted the race win here today after the race leader had to come in for a last minute splash and dash. Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing, Blake Neck through the final corner, and Geodesic Racing will win here in the TCR class for the first round of the season. The 2.4 hours of Okayama. Brilliant race from them. And then we look back, further back in the shot, to Mivano Racing Team. They started final row of the grid, but they were able to haul themselves up onto the top spot of the podium. It's a 1-2 for Mivano in that MX5 class. Brilliant performance from them as well, as we had an absolutely brilliant race here today at Okayama, Nolan.
Absolutely. Just, again, non-stop thrill from start to finish. Just like the first season was, that ran through the winter and into the spring. And now we have had another start to what is going to be another fantastic season. And congratulations to all the drivers for winning in their respective classes. Such a close call for Blake Neck, who we cannot discount as well, because like, the impressive 20th to first drive, Blake Neck, who won the TCR class, he went from 45th on the grid to 18th. That's nearly 30 spots that he made up to win his category when he took the lead because the leader had to make a splash and dash pit stop.
Yeah, brilliant stuff indeed. They were getting close to make a battle of it for the TCR race lead, but they didn't even need to battle. The competitor having to go down onto the pit lane, CXR having to take the late race splash and dash. They will end up finishing P3, but given the right circumstances, it could have been P1 for them. Here are your unofficial race results then for the first round of the Club Sport Series. Season 3, Hell Racers P1 in your sport class, your Porsche 911 Cup Car class. 3.1 seconds over Gold Racing Team Red. Racecraft Esports Slide will get themselves the final step of the podium. Meraki Racing will just miss out in that respect. They will finish in P4 with Team Hell Media P5. DGFX 49 Motorsports in P6 with Artifact Racing recovering into a P7 after those early race penalties. Huge ass Porsche similarly penalty stricken. They finish in P8 with Northside Racing in P9. RevMatch Esports will round out your top 10 in sport class. Slow Racing Esports Team 2 will finish P11 with German Sim Racing Green in 12th. NAB Racing in P13. H2 will finish 14th with DGFX 49. The number 47 car in P15. Team Hell Media number 60 will finish in P16. SRT Esports Green P17. Fisher Motorsports will finish 18th and Gold Racing Team White 19th. Project GT1.de will round out your top 20 in class. Then you look to the TCR class. Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing taking a bit of a surprise win, it has to be said. Up 23 positions from where they started, and in the final 2-3 laps, they saw that CXR Project Black had to come in for a splash and dash, and Geodesic were able to go the distance and take the race win here today by 5.5 seconds over German Sim Racing Orange. CXR Project Black, the car that had to come down in, they are able to grab themselves a podium spot, but it could have been the top step for sure, as SimRC ClubSport in P4. VEC Sim Racing P5 with Gold Racing Team in P6. Full Send Racing P7 with Graphite Racing P8. FAC Auto Tech Sim Racing P9 as Element Sim Racing will round out the top 10. Team Vikings will finish 11th with Graphite Racing in 12th. Real Pixel Motorsports P13 with Artifact Racing in 14th. CXR Project Black 15th. Evolved Racing Team Red in 16th. SRT Esports Team E-Team Brit and Real Pixel Motorsports number 112, and Full Send Racing bringing things down to P20 in the TCR class. And then the last couple of runners there, huge ass Audi. You've got the AOD racing cars, both of them P22, P23, German Sim Racing Cyan and VEC Sim Racing rounding out that TCR field. And then you look at your club class, your MX5s. Mivano Sim Racing Team, they get themselves a 1-2, the 381 getting themselves over the 54, at least in terms of the wrong numbers here today. And, well, the wrong numbers that had to make them, well, that made them start at the back of the grid here today, but seemingly hasn't phased them at all. Huge Ass will get themselves onto that final step of the podium. Rogers Mazda will get themselves P4 with Wilder Sim Racing Team P5, Kalaroff Racing in 6th with CXR Project Black in P7. Zikby Racing in P8 with Tri Racing rounding out your 9-car MX5 field. So that is going to be it in terms of the racing here in the Club Sport Series, but don't go away because we have the post-race show in just a couple of moments' time.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $400,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
A brilliant race to start off the season for Season 3 of the Club Sport Series, brought to you by DGFX. We've just had 2.4 hours of Okayama. In your Porsche field, it was Hell Racers coming away with the race win in the number 16. Geodesic Racing will win in TCR, with Mivano coming out on top in your MX-5s. But first, we'll go to a representative of that Geodesic Racing car. It's the driver that came home and took the checkered flag for them. It's Blake Neck, as Blake... Well, that was certainly an interesting final couple of laps for you guys. You saw you were closing in to that CXR car, and then all of a sudden, that CXR car had to dive down on towards the lane. What were your thought processes when you saw that happen?
I don't think he has a button bounce, but I'll go ahead.
Oh, there
and
we go.
for him. Yeah, we pretty much knew from the moment we stopped, actually before that if we saved one extra lap, we would have had a chance of winning. So that's why Blake didn't end up pushing too much for that P1. Well, he's back, so he can continue it.
Sorry, it helps if I have the right button set.
Yeah, it does help. I was just saying, just take me through your sort of feelings when you saw that CXR car having to take a late race splash and dash.
We were a little bit surprised because we thought they would be close, but because the race went one lap less, I thought they might be able to make it. But
yeah, they might have been able to make it, but they didn't. And you guys came out on top in this situation. And well, that's a brilliant performance considering you guys started in 23 places down on P1 there. So you guys had to do a lot of work during the race here today. How exactly were you able to make up all those positions?
yeah, it was unfortunate due to the incident in qualifying that we weren't able to put in the time, but at the start it was just biding my time, making up spots where I could, holding back if I needed to, and just trying to progress as quickly as I could to get closer to the front of the pack.
Yeah, you have to really put in those hard yards. As Raf, coming on to you, you took the sort of the middle stints for the car here today, and was it the same sort of situation as Blake? Do you just have to put your head down and just try and get as many passes complete as possible?
I wasn't focused on pace per se, but it was definitely nice to be able to pass one or two cars. It was more a case of trying to have enough fuel for Blake's end stint, so we could maybe take a win, but that was basically it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, looking at the sort of later races in the schedule now, because you've gotten this brilliant result here today, and it sets you up in the championship quite neatly, but the next race that we're going to have is on the December 7th, and that's going to be the 4 hours of Brands Hatch. And for you, Raf, is this a track that's really suited to your style, or are you going to struggle a little bit there?
Well, I still have to purchase the track, if I'm correct. So I definitely have driven it, and I definitely do like the track. We'll have to be careful with T1 extremely because of the understeer, of course. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one as well. It's going to be a very short circuit with a lot of cars. And Blake, we saw, you know, how contentious that could be
at any racetrack, let alone whether it's long or short. But short just, exacerbates the issue with everyone in such close quarters and, lapping procedures going on left, right, and center. Are you feeling confident in terms of having to deal with that next time out, or is it going to be a little bit more concerning for you?
I feel confident in our abilities to handle the traffic a bit well. It is a track that will be hard for passing and all the traffic in general, but I think we might do quite well.
Yeah, it looks like you guys, have gotten yourself off on the best foot possible for the first round of the season. Is there anyone you want to thank before we move on?
Yeah, I'd like to thank a couple people. First off, of course, Alpine Stars, GoPro, Turn Racing, SimLabs, and ATK PLN, and of course Blake for putting in those amazing stints.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely fantastic work. That was your geodesic racing car, the number 142, taking the race win in your TCR class here today. And Nolan, just overall a brilliant and textbook job from them.
Absolutely, it was a phenomenal drive, from both of them to make sure that that they could get it all said and done. That was just something very. It was a very good race all around, to say the very least.
Yeah, it very much was, and especially in that final stint where you're going to be marginal on fuel and just keeping your composure and really just saving the car early on, because if you're going to be hit or miss in terms of the fuel, it's important to realize that early and start managing the fuel straight away, rather than realizing it halfway through the stint and having to massively fuel save through the last couple of laps. And it's what they've been able to do well. Just recognize that early, know what the game plan is, and it ended up working out for them.
Yeah, sometimes, getting that little bit of extra fuel into the car, it can be what, gets you that win. And that's what got them their class win. Here today, they went from 45th up to, 18th overall. That's a good 27 spots, if my math is correct. So their strategy certainly paid off for them. It allowed them to come through to the lead when CXR's strategy, unfortunately, fell through. So, but sometimes things just happen to work out that way, and it certainly worked out that way for them here today.
Yep, it really did, as we have another driver getting themselves into the commentary booth, and this will be a representative from Mivano Sim Racing team. It's the, what was going to be the 289 car, but ended up being the 54 car. It's going to be Rakim Fezui, as probably I've butchered the pronunciation of that name, but still, Nolan, you're going to take this interview, so I don't have the embarrassment.
Oh, all right, then. Sounds good. Thank you, Connery. Now, Racine, first of all, congratulations on the 1-2 finish for Mivano Sim Racing. Much smaller Miata field, but, to come up with a 1-2 finish after both cars, started at the back of the grid, that's got to be quite an achievement for you guys.
Yeah, it's been a great clean race on both ends. We had our moments, but we make sure we were staying focused and we were respecting our strategies, and it turned out well. Turned out really nice.
We saw quite a few hairy moments between, yourself, between all the drivers actually, as well as the TCRs and the Porsches, all trying to lap each other and fight around for each other. We also saw that it often became difficult for you guys down in the Miata field to get close and battle with each other because you had the TCRs of the Porsches constantly splitting you guys up. Did that kind of affect how you guys played your race out?
Yeah, well, it's all different cars. TCR front-wheel drive, the Porsche long braking distances, the Mazda is super twitchy on corners. So having this combination, it's all about trying to maximize the time of the overtake. So yeah, but in terms of strategy, no, we just raced our race and we knew it was part of the race. So if we had clean air, we just lock in the lap times, and if we have lap traffic, we make sure we're clean and we're effective.
And looking forward to later on in the calendar to the 4 Hours of Brands Hatch coming up in December. Since you managed to pull together a 1-2 finish at Okayama today, are you going to be aiming to keep that streak up come the next race?
Yep. We'll stay focused. We'll get the right car numbers, and all jokes aside, we're just gonna practice like we always do at the Movano Thrustmaster Racing team, and we're looking forward for the next race at Brands Hatch.
Focus, practice, and precision can always, make or break a race. In this case, it certainly ended up making your race. And before we let you go back to your team, did you have anybody that you wanted to shout out today?
Yeah, I wanted to thank the Movano Thrustmaster Racing team and all the guys racing today and racing in general in the team. Great support part of this team. I'm really proud. And also I wanted to thank the Racing Esports Network and RaceSpotTV for the coverage. And I'm looking forward for the next race.
And that was Rasim Fezui from Movano Sim Racing Team with their beautiful 1-2 finish here in the 2.4 Hours of Okayama for the first race in the ClubSport series.
Well, there we go. We have another representative from Movano as well, and this is the ended up being the race leading and race winning Movano car, Brandon Hawkin. Absolutely fantastic effort from you and of course your team here today, able to get that 1-2 finish for Movano. Just take us through how you're able to do things from the basically final row of the grid.
Well, hey guys, that was that was fun working our way up the pack there. Marcello actually did most of the work from the beginning, but we knew we had the pace, so we didn't let ourselves get too worried, and we just did as we try to usually do.
Yeah, and that seems to be going from basically dead last up into P1 and making it look very, very convincing at the end of the race there. You guys are seemingly able to put up half a second to a second or so over the rest of your competitors and simply don't look back, especially in terms of the race pace where you guys seem to do very, very well. And, at this stage, of course, you've won the first round of the championship. Your sister car has gained second as well. Surely you're, even at this early stage, looking very, very promising in terms of taking the whole thing by the time we get to Interlagos, right?
Well, thank you. Yeah, for sure. We're definitely confident, but we can't get our heads too high in the clouds here, because huge ass man, they were really quick too. So, and we had a really good battle with them mid race. So we gotta stay on our game and keep doing what we try to do best. And we're really looking forward to Interlagos for sure.
Yeah, but there's a couple of races in between now and Interlagos, one of which is the next one, December 7th, 4 Hours of Brands Hatch. How are you feeling about that one?
Oh man, actually, I didn't know Brands Hatch was the next one. Yeah, so I really love Brands Hatch, one of my favorite tracks. So we're looking forward to trying to do what we did today. But I just can't thank the guys enough. They did an amazing job, and Yeah,
absolutely brilliant stuff indeed. And before we wrap up the broadcast here, is there anything you want to say before we do so?
Oh, for sure. I'd like to thank my team, Thrustmaster Movano Racing. We did a really good job working together and getting that fuel strategy down. There was just a slight hiccup with the sister car, but all of us did a really good job and really had a really clean race. So thank the guys for that. And the series organizers, they put on a really good show, and you guys, of course, for the broadcast. We'll have to watch that later. And that's about it. Really, really good job from all of our competitors, and we'll see you next time.
We'll definitely see you next time. Thank you very much. That was Brandon Hawkin as part of the Movano Sim Racing team number 298. Taking the race win today here in the MX5 Club class.
And, well, just to sum up this race, Nolan, especially in that TCR class, things absolutely crazy, passes and battling going on left, right, and center. We had a couple of bits of battling in the other two classes as well, in the MX-5s and in the Porsches. So I think overall, it's from most people, it's going to be a very well-run race. And, there are going to be a couple towards the back that have been hard done by a couple of things this race with all the incidents and whatnot. But I think overall, I'm going to give this race a pretty good grade.
I would certainly give it I give it a big A from me. That's what I would give. This is an A in my book, to say the very least. The race itself was phenomenal. It was exciting. We had thrills, we had spills, we had passing, we had battling, we had pit strategy that came in right at the end as well. It was definitely a huge entertainment to watch. And again, the ClubSport series, they do that. They've always put on a good show. I don't know what it is about it, but it's just such a good series to watch. And it's definitely going to be a lot, it's going to be a whole lot more exciting now that, touring cars are involved, especially come Brands Hatch. That's going to be a very interesting race, to say the very least.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be an exciting one. I'm kind of jealous that if Justin comes back, he'll be on this broadcast for that one, because that would be absolutely insane. But best of luck to you guys for taking us through the coverage of that one. Of course, you have the rest of the schedule up on screen for you now. Mosport, then Barcelona, then Phillip Island, then Interlagos to finish off the 6-round season of the ClubSport Series Season 3. Race 1 in the books here, and it's going to be the teams of Hell Racers, Alpine Stars, Duzies Racing, and Mivano taking race wins in each of the respective classes here today. I've been Connery Maddock, and that has been Nolan Rempel. We'll see you guys in about a month's time.